Ms. Salvant?
We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and to thank Him for our bountiful blessings, especially for the parish natural resources. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will also always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray for the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to do which is right. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Lapine would like to have a moment of silence. Mr. Lapine.
You want to hit me in cue?
You on?
Okay. Please bow your head for a moment of silence. Former council member Morris Treadaway just recently passed away. He served as a council in the early 90s, so please bow your head. Thank you.
Okay, before we start our meeting, I'd like to remind everyone to silence their cell phones. We'd also like to thank Mr. Danny Garrett for providing king cakes today for everyone to enjoy. If you haven't seen him, they have some out in the lobby. But just remember, there's no food or drinks allowed in the council chambers. We don't have any executive session today, so we'll move to 1B.
A proclamation declaring February 8, 2018 is Robert Bob Norton Day in the parish of Plaquemines.
Councilmember Juneau?
Yes, I'll make a motion.
Unanimous second.
if you object.
Machine is open. Let the record reflect that 8 council members, yes. There was a no vote from Ms. Salvant. No, not a vote. She abstained. She's not at her seat. Ms. Barbara?
A proclamation declaring February 8, 2018 is Robert Bob Norton Day in the parish of Plaquemines. Whereas Robert Bob Norton, a longtime resident of Plaquemines Parish, was born February 10, 1938, and has been married to his wife Mary for 56 years. And whereas Bob has dedicated his life to serving the people of both Orleans and Plaquemines parishes for over 32 years. And whereas he joined the New Orleans Police Department in 1966, became a desk sergeant in 1968, field sergeant in 1977, lieutenant in 1981, and deputy commander of the 4th District in 1987 before retiring from the New Orleans Police Department in 1989. And whereas in 2008, Charles Gouy recruited him to Plaquemines Parish, where he was assigned to courtroom security for Judge Connor in Division A. Bob was also known for offering encouragement and advice to the participants of drug court and prided himself on having a response time under 8 minutes to get to the court. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Plaquemines Parish Council, represented by its duly authorized chairman Nicole Williams, and by concurrence of the parish president Amos Cormier, representing the Plaquemines Parish government, that it hereby declares February 8, 2018 as Robert Bob Norton Day in the parish of Plaquemines.
Mr. Juneau?
Yes. Will Mr. Norton and his family please come up front? And we're going to take a picture with you and your family. If your wife would like to come also, and also Judge Connor.
Judge Connor, would you like to speak? Judge Connor, would you like to speak and say a few words?
I'll say hello.
Oh.
Yes, just a few words. First of all, I want to thank the council. This is a great thing you guys are doing. I know Mr. Black knows all too well about, police officers and what they go through. And too often in the media, maybe rightly or wrongly, you see negative things about police officers. But for this particular gentleman, I refer to him as an officer's officer. He has been dedicated not only to my court, but also to the council in providing protection to you. And this gentleman has basically put his whole life out there as a police officer, dedicated. And the only reason he's retiring is because, unfortunately, Father Times caught up with him, and it was his decision to advise us that he could no longer do the job. From behalf of myself and my staff, he'll be greatly missed. And we would just like, again, to support him by being here today. It is his day. And I can't say how much I thank you for honoring such a good man, because it's important that when we have good public servants in Plaquemines Parish, that they be given the due that they are entitled to. So thank you again on behalf of my staff for honoring this good man.
Thank you. Does anyone from the table wish to speak? Mr. Roussel?
Yes, I want to congratulate you, Mr. Bob, for your many years of service to the public, as well as being a good friend and a confidant in the drug court for all of those individuals who you have counseled. The other day when we were at the courthouse for your retirement, it was impressive to see all of the people who were in the audience that you have counseled much more than you would imagine, and the help that you have given them. And whenever I came into the courthouse, you were always there, professional, and did a great job. So thank you, and to your wife, you have a very good man there. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
If there are any of the family members that'd like to come and be in the photo, feel free to come up.
Something that we're dealing with. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, here we go, y'all. First one in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's get one more in 3, 2, 1. I got mine.
His wife, when she's feeling good. Thank you, Nicole. All right, here we go.
Status report by the parish president.
Mr. Cormier?
Good afternoon. For the record, this is the status report. Parish President Amos Cormier for the time period of January 29th, 2018 to February 8th, 2018. We have the Stephen Ambrose Historical Society will be bringing down a tour to visit Fort Jackson and may take a trip to Fort St. Philip as well. And this is a biannual event. Many people come from around the country for these tours and also discussions on the Civil War battles that occurred there. And while at discussing Fort Jackson and Fort St. Philip, I'm sure some of you saw last night, they had the story air on WGNO and News with a Twist that, contrary to Mobile's assertions that they had a Mardi Gras before Louisiana's, we asserted the rightful claim that Mardi Gras was celebrated here in Plaquemines Parish in 1699, approximately 20-some-odd years before Mobile had theirs. So I thought it was a well-done piece, and once again, defending our rightful cultural patrimony here in Louisiana. We had, on Thursday, February 1st, Phoenix Elementary School had a tree planting at the Woodlands Conservatory. And then today as well, the Belchast Primary School had tree planting. And these are wonderful events, and we thank Chevron for their assistance in these things, because agriculture and planting of trees and which will hopefully lead to the planting of other food types, plants, is an important aspect of life for food and other, the good of the environment. And so this is a wonderful opportunity for our local children to get hands-on experience dealing with our environment. On Monday, February 5th, we had the monthly meeting with the Plaquemines Parish Sheriff's Office and other elected officials. And these meetings are an opportunity for dialogue and to discuss concerns. And they are, for the most part, I think, helpful in creating a somewhat collaborative process, especially between the Sheriff's Office and Plaquemines Parish government. On Wednesday, February 7th, yesterday, we had a wonderful event, the Mardi Gras Ball for the senior citizens in Port Sulphur. It's always a joy to be around our seniors, and it's always an opportunity to learn from them because those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. And on that point, I'll go back to a very hot topic that has received some press lately, and that was the memorandum of understanding between some federal agencies and CPRA. The administration was not kept in the loop on this one, and now since that time I received phone calls from CPRA, and we will be meeting with them this coming week. It's anyone who's read the book Rising Tide knows that in 1927 there was a sort of an emergency diversion that was created by blowing up the levee by Carnarvon. And anyone who also knows that book, read that book, knows that the people of Plaquemines were promised to be compensated and reimbursed. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the people of Plaquemines were never compensated and reimbursed. Without impugning the intentions of anyone who's currently in CPRA, anyone who looks at the 2017 Coastal Master Plan, particularly project numbers, there are three project numbers, or four rather, detailing specifically Plaquemines Parish, PLA .01N, 02N, 03N, and 05N, have a very a tone that's very similar to the statement and message that was documented in the book Rising Tide, in which there are promises of buyouts, promises of a whole slew of promises made, but I look forward to addressing those matters in detail with CPRA this coming week. And I'm hopeful that we will come on to the same page, because it's certainly, it was not in a spirit of partnership, in that these MOUs were brought to a signing without our being involved in the deliberative process. And while it is certainly true, as Colonel Clancy noted with the Corps of Engineers, that these memorandums have no legally binding effect, I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to speak with CPRA to ensure that this miscommunication is addressed at the front end and not at the back end. There are also other concerns that we will raise, such as specifically regarding to mitigation. It's my appreciation that there are certain assumptions made regarding some of these grand diversion projects, which I don't think they do not have the empirical data to back it up. There's a lot of talk that was made of the West Bay diversion, but anyone who tracked the West Bay diversion project knows that prior to action being taken to slow the velocity of the water, it wasn't creating land, it was actually blowing land out. And then there were also, it's my understanding and appreciation, that there were certain dredged materials that were pointed or sent in that direction. And that's what created the building of some land. We know for a fact, because we've seen it, that dredging and pipeline activity works. We saw that happen on just south of Alliance. During the Nungas administration, there was land built, and there was a pipeline, and the dredged material was put into the pipeline and delivered, and land was built. And so we'll be asking those questions and looking for answers on those matters, because when you have a strategy that has been proven to work, it sort of begs the question, why is there such a desire for more experimental strategy to be employed or tested? And on that historical note, we also have to remember that here in Plaquemines Parish, we were the first place in the world where drilling occurred in water for oil. And that technology of drilling in water for oil has been exported around the world, and certainly has been quite lucrative for some people. But we also note that it has had some adverse environmental impact on coastal Louisiana. And so I note that as a cautionary tale, because I don't think Plaquemines should always be the first place of experiment. We had 2 days ago, we had a very heavy rain, somewhat unprecedented under normal circumstances. I think almost 7.5 inches of rain fell within 2 hours, which caused some flooding in the Buras Sunrise area. I have personally gone down and taken photographs and pictures of the area of concern, and I have these pictures, and if the council would like to see them, I'd be more than glad to provide them. But what they document is that there are culverts under Highway 23 that have been deteriorating, as well as a ditch on the southbound lane of Highway 23 that could, and especially on the northbound lane, are definitely in need of maintenance. It's something that, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions, but this is the reason why Plaquemines Parish historically has always had a heavy equipment department of about 45 men strong, because of, I think it was Ms. Fridge who noted during the summer months where the local people are going to do a better job of taking care of our highways, our ditches, than people who aren't from here. And it's something that over time, the maintenance and operation costs are something that have to be accounted for and factored in. Currently, this obligation falls upon DOTD, but as has been noted by residents, I think Plaquemines, if we were given the resources, could do a better job, just merely, if not, for no other reason than our local residents have skin in the game, as opposed to someone who's coming in from Avondale or Westwego to do a job. The levee inspection happened this week, and briefly I'll let Director Beschel address that.
Good afternoon, everyone. We had a levee inspection earlier this month on the West Bank, and the only spot that we haven't done was on the Algiers side. And we have some work to do over there with some of the companies to move some equipment. Otherwise, everything went pretty good. I think we're getting more deficiencies taken off than put back on, but it's becoming more of a task. They're getting to be a little bit more picky now. We just went on the East Bank, and we did remove a lot off of the East Bank, but there's a lot put back on. And of course, you all know about the culverts underneath the Reach B, and we're going to try and do that in-house. And we have HNTV also. That's a contract that's going to try and help us to see how much it's going to cost and do. But for me to spread my men on the levees as it is right now, it's going to be very difficult for me to do the projects that are in hand right now that I would love to do. Some of these projects might take a month or two for 5 or 6 guys. Some other ones a little bit less, maybe a month with 4 guys. I have right now 12 people in my department, and it's going to be very difficult. With storm season coming up, the sandbagging, and getting prepared to make sure that everything is in place and ready to roll to where we need it to go. So I'm begging you, if you all can find any which way to give me some more people, I would really appreciate it. I could do a lot more for you guys, really. So, but that's my update. But and I know it's going to be a problem for all of us, but I'll do the best I can. Thank you.
And finally, I'm proud to report 2 great projects, both one a decade in coming, and well, actually both of them I think are a decade or so in coming. I signed the contract for Lake Hermitage Road. So after how long has that been, Councilman Trufant? 12 years in coming, in the making. And I also signed the contract with Galafaro Construction for the Port Suffolk Library. And Mr. Galafaro was headed down today to begin operations. So that's another project. It's been since Katrina. And I think that's the sort of the closing note, and I think this is how I'm going to raise this issue to CPRA, is that we can't lose sight of the big picture. We have never recovered from Hurricane Katrina. And now we're being told that, well, the game plan has changed. When the decision was made to exclude approximately 75% of the geographical area of Plaquemines Parish from the HISDRA system, that was a decision in which, or had drastic effects on the majority of Plaquemines Parish, the geographic area. And so that has to be the big picture focus here. And if we lose sight of that goal, I think we're shortchanging ourselves. And that's why we need a unified front on this, because Plaquemines is one parish. And with that, Chairwoman Williams, I tender my time.
Okay, I have a couple of questions for you, as do some other council members, I believe. In regards to the biannual event with the Historic Society, do you have a date when that tour is supposed to take place? If you don't, you can just get it to me later. I'd just like to know when it's going to take place.
Yeah, I want to say February 17th, but hold on, I'll check.
Okay. And in regards to the rainfall that we had, and the ditches and the culverts, since I took office, and this may have been going on before I took office, as a matter of fact, I know it was because there were some complaints that came through my office related to collapsing culverts throughout the entire district that's been put in for several years now. I think it's just they're old, and because of the saltwater intrusion over the years. So, and I'm not sure if it's our responsibility, DOTD's responsibility, but I just ask that you maybe reach out to DOTD and see if there's something that can be done in order to try to replace those culverts to maybe alleviate issues such as these. And I did speak to Mr. Simpson. We approved several employees for his department. I think it was three or four last year, and he hasn't received a list for any of them. So, and I'm sure that's the case with, it's my understanding that since October, there's been not any advertisements for the positions that we approved. So I'm asking that you maybe look into this, get with Civil Service. I don't see Ms. Allen. Get with them and try to, we've appropriated the funding and lifted the hiring freeze. So I just ask that you try to see if there's any way that we can move forward with this, because, the pump operators, that's critical need positions. And that's all that I have.
Thank you, Chairwoman Williams. I'll address those two. You are correct. I agree with you. Those culverts are in a deteriorated state, and that's why, and they are definitely the responsibility of DOTD, because that's within their servitude of their State Highway 23. And that's, again, going back, that's why we need to take a unified approach for the parish, Chairwoman Williams, because there are some who are looking to write off large chunks of our parish. And so if that mentality perpetuates itself, then clearly, well, why replace the culverts down there? They're going to all be bought out. Or to that's why we have to have a unified approach here throughout the whole parish. So that's answer your first question. The second question, pump operators, I know I went over there on Monday. We're feverishly trying to search for ways to expedite the hiring process. And we're going to continue to do that. The Director of Civil Service The day I was there, she's the only funded position there right now, or the only person there, and she was out sick with the flu, I believe. So there was, this is why I know it's just like heavy equipment. We have no redundancy. We have no backup. If people get sick with the flu or something, it wreaks havoc on or greatly hinders our ability to function as a parish government.
I understand that, but I mean, it's been several months now, so I mean,
I share your frustration.
I'm sure you do.
But it's worth noting that it's not like heavy equipment.
That's right.
Please don't compare a civil service operation to heavy equipment.
Good point.
It's a totally different situation, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Juneau. Mr. Juneau?
Yes. Civil service is here supposed to help the people. But to me, she's hindering us more than she's helping. And even when they had a full staff, it was the same predicament. It wasn't because it's unstaffed. It's the same thing. And I got to say it because I was here, and it was so all of us was here. Also about the rain, I called up Mr. Robin Morgan Tuesday for Instramark, and he was out immediately on Broad Street in Quavers, which we've been having problems for years. And I think soon we're going to finally get rid of that when we block off Quaver Street, open up F Boulevard and to Broad Street, and all that will work out. Am I correct, Mr. Superintendent of Engineering?
The Main Street project is up and coming. There's drainage improvements in that vicinity, so yes, then drainage will improve in that area.
Thank you.
Yes. Where did the first parade took place? Where is located?
We don't know for sure if it was a parade, but we know there was a celebration.
Where?
On the east bank of Plaquemines.
That's all I need to know. I'm just trying to clear history. That's all. Just trying to make a point. Duly noted. The other thing, I agree with Mr. Juneau's comment about the water, and I'm sure the councilman can attest to the fact that we have some grave issues on the east bank of Highway 15, which is the only highway that people travel on the front that has been constantly inundated by water because of the lack of effective drainage. So I'm assuming that we'll take the initiative to clear all of it up throughout the parish because that is the main source of transportation on the lower east bank is that Highway 15. And we had several accidents throughout the years because of that stagnated water being on the highway. So I think it's something that we will have to address in the very near future. That's all I have, Madam Chairman. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, I just want to clarify a comment by Mr. Beschel. And then Mr. Beschel, I appreciate your concern with your manpower, but let me just clarify that this council, during the budget hearings, appropriated funds and lifted the hiring freeze for 4 tractor drivers, a foreman, and a truck driver 2. So we have, you asked this council for manpower, we've given you manpower. It's a civil service issue. We need the administration to take charge and lead that for us to hire those people for you. So I just want the public to know that when you make the comment for this council needs to find a way to find funding, we did. And we funded 6 positions. So
If I may address that, yes, you're correct, Councilman Black, that I think there were 4 positions, but if you add the 4 to the 12 or 13, puts you at 17 or 18 people as to where the prior administrations had 40 and 45.
Okay, all right. So what you're saying is, let's not hire 5 or 6 people because you want 40-something people. I know you want 40-something people. I get it. My question to you is are you saying that you're not going to hire the 5 or 6 that we've appropriated funds for? Because
of course not.
Okay, I mean that sounds like your argument, but
no, not at all. That's not it at all.
My point is that this council, Mr. Beschel asked for funding, asked for us to look for ways to hire people. And I want to clarify to the public that we did. This council found funding within the budget. We appropriated those funds for those personnel, and we've lifted the freeze for those personnel. Whether it's 6, 8, 20, or 40, it's still additional personnel. I'm asking administration to move forward with the hiring of those people. We also need a safety engineer. We look for funding for that. We found it. That hiring freeze, that position has been lifted. It's funded.
It's funded part-time, correct?
No, it's funded.
Full-time? I did request that. I did request that, but I thought at budget hearings it was cut to part-time.
No, this council, you asked for it, and this council found the funds. We funded it for you, and we lifted the freeze for you. And that was
On that position?
On that position and the other 8 positions for Mr. Beshel, amongst many other positions. So there's a disconnect somewhere, because like Ms. Williams said, we haven't posted a position since October. And that includes the 911 operators. That's 3 of them that we funded and lifted the freeze on. That also includes your PIO, who you desperately asked for. And as council really went around in circles making a decision on whether or not we should do it, and we did it for you, but yet that position still hasn't been posted. So we're still paying Ms. Bradley out of personal services as opposed to paying her from the funds that we appropriated for her position as the PIO. And we can't even give her an email address because she's not the official PIO. So
I share your frustration, and I share especially Councilman Juneau's frustration, because to give you another example, it's this administration's position to comply with the law that this council passed last council meeting, Ordinance 18, I think it was 13, which was to give the pay increases to our employees as of January 1. Once again, I've heard back from the Director of Civil Service that her legal interpretation differs from Cormier administration and from this council's. Believe me when I tell you that we are exploring alternative remedies. Given the constraints with the hiring freeze, we're exploring every possible alternative to remedy this. And so it's a shared concern, Councilman Black. If I may, there was one aspect, Chairwoman Williams, I just wanted to compliment one of our citizens who really takes his civic duty seriously, Mr. Ken Ragus, who when this MOU came out, he authored an email that had some very good and astute points in it. And it's because of citizens like Councilman Ragus that that it really helps all of us to best see to it that the interests of Plaquemines are well represented.
On the, well, let Mr. Roussel speak. He's next in line, and then you can, okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. My comments, I'll follow up with the MOU and the participation. I applaud you for trying to plug in now and become part of the MOU process, or at least the deliberation. However, the CPRA meetings, we have to fully engage and attend those meetings. We can't just pretend like those meetings don't exist and sit on a back wall and listen. We have to actually participate. And that's been a complaint that I've had expressed at these public meetings for quite some time. We need to be upfront and engaged if we want to be part of the process. And so I'm not sure where we're headed with CPRA and the discussions that we have. I understand that we are holding up a soil boring permit until you have this meeting, and that way you can negotiate, discuss, or whatever's going to happen there. But there is a full-blown environmental process that is taking place now for this project, which I'm not sure if the government has expressed or submitted any comments in the environmental assessment process, or how are we going to handle that. But I agree we have to be part of it, and if we want to be part of it, we need to participate and attend. The second comment that I'll have is as far as continuing to discuss positions and asking for more positions and budgeting and so forth. I don't know when we will realize that we are operating on one-time money to the extent of $5 million to balance the budget that we have this year as well as what we did last year. And we have an unreserved and designated fund balance that is $260-something thousand. So it does no good to come here and talk about 45 positions and ask for more people on a continuing basis when you've already heard that we've funded to the extent that we can fund. So I would appreciate that we focus on what we have and do what we've got to do, and stop the bantering about what we're doing with asking for more positions, because we have expended almost every dollar we have, with the exception of the unreserved undesignated fund balance. So I'm not sure how much longer we're gonna continue this discussion, but I think the council stepped up and unfroze every position that was budgeted, and now it's in the hands of civil service to give you the list and for you to appoint the positions. So I'm hoping that we can realize that, to limit the discussion on this issue. The second thing is I agree with you that the parish doing work on the state highways, the reason that we've had that contract in place for cutting grass all of these years was for the fact that we know we do better. But we don't have that contract anymore, and I don't know if you're making any progress on trying to get more funds for that contract, but until then, we're going to have to live with the state cutting it. So the choice was made not to sign that contract, and so we have what we have, the state maintaining it. As far as the culverts, I agree to comments that were made earlier. That is a DOTD responsibility, and I would hope that you have called them to put them on notice as to the flooding that we had in Buras, so they can be informed of what their responsibility is lacking as far as the maintenance of those culverts. And with that, those are my comments.
Yes, Councilman Russo. First, you're grossly uninformed as to how this MOU developed. It wasn't until when I was in D.C. at a Corps meeting that one of the Corps members referenced an email chain in which all these things were being discussed, and thought that I was part of that email chain, and looked through the whole thing, and I was not. We were not included in those email deliberations. So that is something that, again, certainly didn't. It could have been just a mishap, or maybe it was an accident, but it alarmed me that I had to go to D.C. and hear it from the Corps. And then then after that fact was discovered, Mr. Peterson, CPRA attorney, did forward it to me. And I'm not attributing any malice or any ill will to Mr. Peterson. Sometimes there are numerous federal agencies involved, and sometimes accidents happen. And so I'm not saying attributing any ill will, but it's something that, again, anyone who starts reading what's going on, this is being sold nationally as some new technology that can be developed here in Louisiana and exported around the world. And I guess we disagree, Councilman Russo, because I don't think we should be the guinea pig again.
My response is this, and for those who have their ears open and listening, I'll repeat what I said, that we have to be participating in the meetings and be at the table. Irregardless of what you think about what I'm grossly misinformed about, I didn't say anything about you being left in or out of the MOU. What I said was that we need to participate with CPR, be at the meetings, and be at the table and not on the back wall. And so I'm not here to argue with you.
You're implying that we are not doing, this administration is not participating. And these MOU discussions were not done publicly. So that's where I take offense at the mischaracterization. And I have a copy of the email chain, and I can show you the dates.
Let's not go back and forth. I think he was referring to
First of all, I had the
attending
floor.
meetings.
I was interrupted, and I don't appreciate being interrupted until my remarks are complete. I don't interrupt you, and I appreciate you don't interrupt me. I'm talking on a broad picture, Mr. Cormier, and I'm not litigating this issue with you as you like to do. I am simply stating that we need to be participating in the CPRA process, which I am sure we are not participating on a regular basis. So you can take that any way you like to take it, and that'll end my comments.
And well, Councilman Roussel, again, just note for the record, I disagree with your implied statement that we are not participating. As I stated in my comments, we have a meeting set up next week.
And the reason we have that meeting set up next week is because you're holding them hostage on a Sawborn permit.
I'm representing the entire interest of Plaquemines Parish, and that's why I was elected parish president, Councilman Roussel.
That's good.
We haven't forgotten that.
Okay. Ms. Salvant?
Yes, I just want to go back and visit the comments that were said earlier in regards to Mr. Beshel's request. A lot of some statements were true in the comments, the different comments that were made. But let's be honest, Mr. Beshel, okay? It's even if the buck stops at Mr. Cormier's desk, he has the right to enforce the legislation that this council adopted. But Ms. Ellen is the holdup. That's the elephant in the room. And nobody want to address her. They don't have a problem with addressing him, and I don't have a problem too, because he needs to enforce the legislation and make Ms. Ellen do what she needs to do. But there's a responsibility also with this council. When they had a problem with the director, you know what they did? They took action. This council took action. We have the power of the purse string with Ms. Ellen. Okay? And we can force Ms. Ellen to do her job. She's not being forced. So, you know, there's no reason why we should be begging Ms. Ellen to enforce, to pass or act on legislation that this council adopt. So let's be clear on that. That's the end of my comment.
Next. Mr. Burke, you want to speak on this?
Just real quick. I just want to go on record of passing this document out. It's ordinance 10-163 that was actually passed by Mr. Beshel with I believe, a 9-0 vote as it relates to contracts and presenting them to the council. So I'd just like to go on record as passing this out to the council. And if we could get the administration to please comply with this ordinance, that would be greatly appreciated.
And thank you, Councilman Burt. And when that ordinance was passed, the parish president had no less than 5 staff people, and someone just for emails, someone just for scheduling, someone just for phone calls, a driver. And given the manpower shortages, we're doing the best we possibly can to comply.
Next item, Ms. Barber, please.
Bids and advertisements.
Ms. Stanifer?
Hi, I'm Brenda Stanifer, Parish Purchasing Agent. I have 4 this afternoon. I have a resolution authorizing acceptance of bids for furnishing chemicals for 1-year use after by the Water and Sewer Department. Have to do advertisements. Bids were received December 5th from the following: Brentag Southwest of Texas, DPC of Louisiana, GEO of Arkansas, Paladon of Georgia, Thornton Musso of Louisiana, and Louisiana Wastewater of Louisiana, and Univore of Washington. Mr. Robert Morgan, Supervisor of Severn Trent, which is now Infomark, so I apologize for that, recommends the acceptance of the low bid of Thornton Musso after field testing on item 1. This is on that one item that we deferred last time.
Does anyone have an objection to taking all of these bids and advertisements in Globo? Individually? Okay.
Okay,
Go ahead. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead, Ms. Brennan.
so that's it on that first one then.
Offered by Mr. Bartholomew, seconded by Mr. Juneau. Any questions or comments from the table? 2-1, hearing none. Sheena's open. Passes 9-8, and Mr. Edgecombe, 8-0, Mr. Edgecombe's not at the table.
Okay, I have a resolution authorizing acceptance of bids for furnishing limestone, crushed stone, and riprap for 1 year for parish-wide use. After due advertisements, bids were received January 30th from the following: Pontchartrain Materials of New Orleans and Trucking Innovations from New Orleans. It is my recommendation that we accept the low bid of Pontchartrain Materials.
This is not the one we just did? So we have 3 in 1?
No, we just did the one on chemicals. It should be on the agenda.
Oh, it's number 4.
Oh, it might be, I'm sorry, I don't know what order they're on the agenda, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we just did 2-4 was the first one we voted on.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Okay. This is 2-1. Offered by Mr. Bartholomew, seconded by Mr. Lapine. Comments or questions from the table? Audience? You do, Mr. Rousseau? Oh, wait. I can't get back out till, because we're in the, okay. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, on the limestone, do we know how much we have in stock and how much money we have budgeted to purchase more?
Angie, you have the budget on that?
You should have to stop.
And I'm not sure about what's on stock. Mr. Beshel, do you
Beshel,
know
do
how
you
much
know?
we have on hand?
I don't have it with me.
And the last time that I recall purchasing any limestone was for the back levee, which didn't come into our inventory. So before that, it's been quite a while. So I would imagine we're probably
You're talking about
not a lot in inventory.
inventory we have, I'm sorry, I missed that. Inventory, we probably have about a half a barge up here in north and just a few truckloads across the river.
Okay. And do you have enough money to budget for this year to buy another barge or two?
We have some in, yeah, we have some money in, we haven't used any yet, so.
All right. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the table? Audience? Hearing none. Sheena's open. Recommendation passes 9-0. Next item.
Which is the drainage. A resolution authorizing acceptance of bids for furnishing drainage pipe for a period of 1 year for parish-wide use. After due advertisements, bids were received January 30th from the following: Keeling Company of Little Rock, Coastal Curvert of Louisiana, Kedco of Louisiana, Core and Main of Louisiana, Kerborn Supply of Louisiana, and Semsco of Louisiana. It is my recommendation that we accept the overall low bid of Semsco.
Mr. Roussel?
I'll offer for the purposes of discussion.
Okay.
Excellent.
I'll second.
Same question, basically. You know, we've had this discussion about drainage pipe and how much we have, and do we have any idea of what we have in stock, and do we have enough pipe and the big pipe to replace the pipe at Myrtle Grove, even though this is not my district?
Thank you for making a comment.
I'm just looking out for the issue that comes to the table.
Don, do you know the inventory on hand?
I do not know all the inventory on hand. However, for me to answer that, I'd have to know exactly what type of pipe we would need, and all of that actually comes from Ms. Dugas, and plenty of it, we just, you know, we'd have to add and subtract and find out what we're going to need compared, and that's not all done yet. So
last
Maybe
year.
Mr. Ken can,
You can.
Typically, we take it on a case-by-case basis, and we use the appropriate pipe for the appropriate jobs. Right now, the only pipe that I believe we have in inventory is metal pipe, which I would not recommend in the Myrtle Grove area.
And so we're purchasing some plastic pipe with this bid?
No, sir. This is an annual bid. I think it's just being renewed
Right.
or rebid and accepted.
But that's,
We'll buy it on an as-needed basis.
So all other pipe is metal pipe that we use throughout the parish, or we just buy plastic on a needed?
It depends on where the location is. If it's suspect to salt water, we try not to use it.
so I guess my answer is how we are going to address those problems.
We're still working on that, Mr. Russo.
saying needed basis, so meaning there's a
Yes,
need
ma'am.
right now. The need is there.
I agree.
Do you have, well, I guess the question becomes, is there funding in place?
The funding that we have right now in our capital improvement budget, I believe the Myrtle Grove area has roughly 40-something thousand in that budget. We're going to use 30,000 to do the opening of that cut by the pump station, and then in-house fill in the cut where the old pump station was. So the balance in the Myrtle Grove drainage culvert budget is only around 46,000, and we can purchase plastic pipe with that money.
Okay.
I only have to go out to bid on pipe. The plastic pipe is if the commodity's over 30,000 for the year. So I may or may not have to come back to bid, on that if we don't go over 30,000.
Okay.
We'll finish. Mr.
Appropriate answer.
It's the correct answer. I mean, I don't know how much they'll spend.
Black? Mr. Black?
How much is this contract for?
This is just my regular annual drainage pipe contract, just like everything else that renews automatically every year to have in place in case we need it.
It just sets the price for each size of A2000?
Right, for the whole year. The vendor is locked into that price.
What are we going to do with the $150,000 worth of corrugated metal pipe that Mr. Wallace bought? Because we live in Plaquemines Parish.
I understand.
Pretty much all salt
I understand. I mean,
Can we all?
I'm the purchasing agent. I don't.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Beshaw, I'd ask maybe if possible, you can do an inventory, or somebody can do an inventory of the CMP, because it's pretty much useless to us. And I think we've belabored the point about using PVC A2000 on any project. So if you need to locate it, it's on Barrier Road in Mr. Roussel's district, right past the pump station is lay-down yard. And there's probably about 150 grand worth of it laying around.
Mr. B?
We're not.
I'm not ordering anything off of this.
Wallace had purchased while he was here?
Yeah, if we can, I don't know what the process is to sell that to areas maybe north of I-12 that don't have saltwater intrusion issues.
As far as I know, anything that the parish tries to dispose of has to go through the auction. We can't
Okay.
just.
I mean, that's something we may look at, so we can purchase more plastic pipe and get rid of that corrugated metal. That's all my point is.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Yeah, I just want to remind the council, we're not appropriating money for any specific project. It's just giving us the ability, when something comes up that if we need is material that has already been bidded on, and we are, we're at state contract price and knowing exactly what the cost will be per feet, foot, linear meter, whatever it may be at the cost, but that doesn't have anything to do with projects. But the project has to go before engineering, come up with the cost. Then if it's funding is needed, it has to come before the council to do what we have to do. We're not appropriating anything other than accepting bids.
Correct.
It was already discussed here, Mr. Bartholomew. And
I understand that, Ms. Saul, but
we
I'm
know
just
that was
saying,
a
but
replacement.
what she's doing here today is just asking us to approve the bids that we put out from the different companies to give us a quote on the material that we may buy. That's all it is, Because if you're talking about project, that's something different. That means you have to get the stuff done. But we're not doing that.
Correct. If there's not a need
That's another
for it,
discussion.
we won't spend a penny of this contract if there's
Right.
not a need.
Finish? Mr. Russo?
I think the discussion revolves around, are we buying the right type of pipe? And are we bidding the right type of pipe? And are we accepting the bid on the right type of pipe? And so, okay, no harm, no foul, we accept the bid, but I think we need to look at what we bid next time and buy the right pipe.
I understand. I send out the specifications to the department heads and the directors, and it comes back to me signed, and I send out the specs that I'm given.
Right.
So-
And just to follow up on the comments about that pipe being in my district, if you want to install it, that would be great.
Wait.
I want to make one note. I believe we did use some of the metal pipe on the East Bank by the community center. So we have been trying to use it when it's applicable. Typically for the special pipes like in Myrtle Grove, we can't put that on a annual bid because we don't use the large pipes for the roads. We don't use enough of that to get a good price. So if we would put something like that on a bid, you would get a higher price because you got a limited quantity that you would be purchasing, and they'll know that. But if you buy you put an 18-inch diameter pipe or a 24-inch, which is typical for a roadway side drainage or driveway or the community center, we use a lot of that pipe throughout the years, so you can get a really good price doing this annually. And we do. Mr. Beshel and I did discuss the pipes that were on the bids on Monday. I believe we got that across our desk. We did approve it prior to it being presented.
Mr. Edgecombe?
Mr. Dugas, that you mentioned months before you attended a seminar with some new plastic pipe. Have you researched that or got any information about that new pipe?
We did, and the pipe came in higher than we were anticipating because it was a higher quality pipe. And at this point, we're still looking at options. So we.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lapine?
Mr. Besher, I know you just been newly on the job, and we have now established off of Barrier Road that that's where some of the inventory of the pipes are. Do we have any clue if we have any other places in the parish where we inventory for the pipes?
I thought we had some on Walker Road. Don't we have some down there also, Ken?
I'm not sure, but I know we do have some along the railroad tracks throughout various districts.
Yeah. I think we have some on Walker Road also.
I would hope that we could get a collaborative effort to find out how much inventory we do have.
I will get that for you all and send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
You want to speak again, Mr. Edgecombe? Okay. Any question has been called by Mr. Bartholomew.
We only offered and seconded for discussion.
Oh, for discussion, I'm sorry. And I'll second. Question has been called, machine is open. Vote passes 9-0. Next item, please.
Have a resolution authorizing acceptance of bids for furnishing, printing, letterhead, business cards, et cetera, for a period of 1 year for parish-wide use. After due advertisements, bids were received January 30th from Prinall only. It is my recommendation that we accept the low bid of Prinall.
Offered by Mr. Roussel, seconded by Mr. Burt. Comments or questions from the table? Audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 9-0.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next item, Ms. Marcotte.
Beer and liquor licenses.
Mr. Black?
Yes, I have one. For 102 Woodland Highway, Asahi Sushi Bar. That's it.
Mr. Lapine?
I have one, a special events for the PAWS, the Plaquemines Animal Welfare Society Parade on February 18th, starting at Regions Bank, 1808 Highway 23, Belchase. That is all.
I have a special event, too.
I have none.
sorry, thought I had a special event, but maybe I don't. Anyone else have any? Okay, you want to offer that, Mr. Black or Lapine? Offered by Mr. You got something? No. Okay. Offered by Mr. Lapine, and I'll second it. Questions or comments? Machine is open. I have a special event. I don't know where it's at. Next item, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Building permits.
Does anyone have any objections to taking the construction permits in Globo, 1 through 5? No? Let's do Globo.
4A1, Lobo Operating Application Number 2017-651, dated September 19, 2017. Remove grounded oil storage barge that broke free during Hurricane Cindy after the fact application. Harrison Bayou Area Councilmember Bartholomew. Upstream Exploration, LLC, application number 2017-810, dated November 17, 2017. Install 6-inch pipeline and remove previously abandoned 6-inch pipeline, Breton Sound area, Block 45, Councilmember Bartholomew. Number 3, APC Construction, LLC, application number 2017-765, dated October 31, 2017. Remove conduit from inside levee, backfill and place conduit over the top of the levee, Algiers Canal behind Naval Air Station, Councilmember Roussel. Number 4, Texas Petroleum Investment Company, application number 2018-39, dated January 30, 2018, installs 2-inch gas lift line and 4-inch flow line, Main Pass area, Block 67, Councilmember Bartholomew. Number 5, Whitney Oil and Gas, application number 2018-58, dated January 31st, 2018. Install pilings, drill the SL 214 GIB number 18 and install wellhead protector and 2 4-inch flow lines, Garden Island Bay, Councilmember Bartholomew.
Mr. Bartholomew, do you offer?
I do. I'll second.
Offered by Mr. Bartholomew, seconded by Mr. Roussel. Any questions or comments from the table? Audience? Hearing none, the machine is open.
Two votes pending.
Legislation passes 7 with a no vote from Mr. Black and a no vote for, well,
No vote from Mr. Black and Mr. Burt.
yeah. I'd like to revert back to special permits. Beer and liquor license. I have a special event permit. I'm sorry. It's for the YMCA of Greater New Orleans, the Buras YMCA, the annual Bunko fundraiser, to be held on March 24th from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. It's going to be held at the Buras Auditorium, 116 Auditorium Drive, Buras, Louisiana. And I'll offer. Seconded by Mr. Edgecombe. Questions or comments? Hearing none, the machine is open. Passes 7 with Mr. Black and Mr. Burt not voting.
You need to sign this, Nicole.
Next item, please.
Building and construction permits.
Can we take?
There are 12.
Yeah, well, yeah, we could do could we do the fireworks stands together and do all the, well, actually, we have 2, B and C in Globo, then D and E, and then F through M are all trailer renewals. So can we take them like that? Anyone
B and
has
C,
any?
then D and E,
Yes, ma'am.
and then the rest after that?
Yes, ma'am. That's okay with everyone.
4B, Andrew Jason, new residents in a floodplain zoning district 124 Casenave, Ironton, Louisiana, Councilmember Trufant Salvant. C, Edward Handy, 4th Trailer Residence, 125 Page Lane, Phoenix, Councilmember Bartholomew.
Ms. Salvant?
I want to ask the permit office, has that application and permit has been properly vetted? Everything is in okay.
Okay, Ms. Salvant, do you offer?
Yes, I
those
will.
two? Offered by Ms. Salvant. I'll second. Questions or comments on 4B and C? Hearing none, machine is open. Permits passes 9-0. Let's do D and E, please, Ms. Barbara.
D, Four Seasons Fireworks, fireworks stand renewal, 8220 Highway 23, Belle Chase, Louisiana, Councilmember Lapine. E, Clubhouse Bar and Grill, fireworks stand renewal, 8133 Highway 23, Belle Chase, Louisiana. Sorry, Four Seasons is Councilmember Lapine, and the Clubhouse Bar and Grill is Councilmember Juneau.
Mr. Lapine, do you offer? Offered by Mr. Lapine, seconded by Mr. Juneau. Any questions or comments on these fireworks stand renewals? Hearing none, the machine is open. Passes 9-0. For F through M, please.
F, PHI Inc., Trailer Park Renewal, Ernest Lane, Boothville, Louisiana, Councilmember Williams. G, Goodman's Trailer Park Inc., Todd Goodman Trailer Park Renewal, Goodman Lane, Boothville, Louisiana, Councilmember Williams. H, Windmill Mobile Home Park, Rosalino, Siragusa, Trailer Park Renewal, Windmill Lane, Belle Chase, Louisiana, Councilmember Edgecombe. CNH Mobile Home Park, Carol Turner Trailer Park Renewal, 26180 Highway 23, Port Sulphur, Louisiana, Councilmember Trufant Salvant. J, Gladys Trailer Park, Rove Van Lee, Trailer Park Renewal, Gladys Lane, Boothville, Louisiana, Councilmember Williams. K, Southern Oaks Mobile Home, Inc., Thomas Gorman Trailer Park Renewal, 300 block of East 3rd Street, Belle Chase, Louisiana, Councilmember Black. L, Danos Reynolds, LLC, Anthony Danos, Trailer Park Renewal, RP Lane, Triumph, Louisiana, Councilmember Williams. And M is Emmett's Trailer Park Number 1, Dennis Adolph Jr., Trailer Park Renewal, Yvonne's Lane, Boothville, Louisiana, Councilmember Williams.
Mr. Metcalf, all of these are properly vetted. They meet all the requirements for the renewals? Thank you. I'll offer. Offered by myself, seconded by Ms. Salvant. Any questions or comments on 4F through M? Hearing none, the machine is open. Renewals passed 9-0. Next item, please.
Introduction of ordinances and resolutions.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Yes, I have two. A resolution authorizing director parish president or his designee to work with Atmos Gas Company to reinstall gas line in the Point Lahash Lower East Bank and the West Lower Bank of Plaquemine Parish, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. All right, the other one is an ordinance to appropriate the sum of blank from oil, natural gas, mineral revenue received from Plaquemine Parish government for public lands granted to the Grand Prairie Levy District for the parish, Plaquemine Parish president to employ the funds and the employment of personnel necessary to carry out the duties and responsibility and charges of revenue derived from those land composing of the Grand Prairie Levy District and all the purposes set forth in Act of Louisiana Legislature, the Charter for the Local Self-Governing for Plaquemine Parish, and adopted by election held on May the 13th, 1961, and in with the amending a reenactment of the Charter of Local Self-Government, so amended and reacted in by election held on April the 5th, 1986, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. That's all, Madam Chairman.
Yeah, I have one. An ordinance authorizing and directing Plaquemines Parish President Amos Cormier III to expend Sandy Recovery Initiative Act funds from PW 20914 in order to allow for the bidding on the construction of a baseball complex and multi-purpose closed pavilion located at the government complex, 333 FL Bear Boulevard, Belle Chase, Louisiana, 70037, for improvement and advancement of the parish-wide recreation department and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That's all.
Okay, I have 3. A resolution appointing a replacement member to the Plaquemines Parish Government Civil Service Commission for the position left vacant by Mr. Cornell Smith, whose term is expired, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution appointing a replacement member to the Plaquemines Parish Government Civil Service Commission for the position left vacant by Deanna L. Jurasich, whose term is expired, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a donation for the Libraries Department and to amend the Library Services Fund 2018 operating revenue and expenditure budgets, Libraries Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Mr. Roussel.
An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan drainage Good News project and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And a resolution expressing the Plaquemines Parish Council support of PPL 28 Buras Boat Harbor Marsh Creation Increment 1 project and to request CPRA incorporate this project for consideration for the PRA PPL 28 program for the year 2018 and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Byrd.
I have 2. A resolution expressing the sense of the parish council that the proposed construction and operation of a liquefied natural gas LNG facility by Venture Global Plaquemines LNG LLC is and would be a permitted use under the Plaquemines Parish Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2018 General Fund Operating Expenditure Budget, Council Secretary Department, and the 5-year Capital Improvement Plan, Government Complex, Council Building Project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That is all.
Ms. Salvant.
Mr. Burt, because you're the chairman, respectfully, because you're the chairman of the port, I'm gonna let you pass on that one, okay? But anyway.
Still got one of mine, too.
An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvement plan, upgrade Ironton Park project and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
That's all?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to let anyone in the audience know of our withdrawals and deferrals. Item 6.4 is going to be withdrawn. Item 6C is going to be deferred. And item 6G is going to be withdrawn.
What we doing with 6C?
6.4 is going to be withdrawn. 6C is deferred. And 6G is withdrawn. Okay, Ms. Barber, let's go to 6A1, please.
An ordinance to regulate the hunting, fishing, trapping, and other recreation on public lands owned and or controlled by the Plaquemines Parish government and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer for the purposes of discussion.
Mr. Roussel,
I'll offer for the purposes of discussion.
seconded by Mr. Juneau. Go ahead, Mr. Roussel.
Yes, at the last meeting, we were requested that we defer this item. The legal department was supposed to set up a meeting with the wildlife and fisheries agent and the assistant DA who will prosecute the case, and we haven't heard anything on the meeting. Can we know what's going to happen with that, or can we move forward?
Yes, sir. We did meet with them. It was yesterday afternoon. They have expressed a few concerns, and we have some proposed amendments that we would like to put into the document, into the legislation before it goes forward. So if you would please, y'all can discuss it if you want, because there was a lively discussion at that meeting. But if you could defer it from voting today, that would be great.
Well, the meeting was supposed to be called with the author of the legislation included, so I would know what you're talking about.
Oh, well, I'm not aware of that, sir. I'm sorry.
Well, the reason I deferred it was because Mr. Barbier, who asked me to defer it, said he was going to set a meeting for us to meet. Now I understand the meeting's already been had, so I don't know what went on in the discussion, and I don't know what your amendments are.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to discuss them with you, but obviously wouldn't work to do it right now, so.
Our apologies, Councilman Roussel. Mr. Barbe did have the meeting with, I think, a representative, Mr. Lebrano was there. There were, but my apologies. Evidently, I was not present at the meeting either. But our apologies. Perhaps we could set up another meeting and have you invited as well. There was a lot of things discussed from the standpoint. The sheriff's office was there. They had concerns from the standpoint of enforcement. Judge Lebrano had some good historical and legislative ideas. But we could call another meeting. Definitely invite you. And my apologies on behalf of the administration for not inviting you. I was not present myself.
Thank you. Apology accepted, and I look forward to the meeting.
Yes, sir.
Defer the item.
6A2, an ordinance to prohibit guided duck hunting on public lands owned or controlled by Plaquemines Parish government and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Let's pass over that. Ms. Edgecombe's not at the table at this time. We'll revert back to it.
6A3, an ordinance to amend Article 4, Chapter 14 of the Plaquemines Parish Code of Ordinances relative to commercial film production and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Roussel?
Our offer is submitted.
Mr. Roussel offers. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Juneau. Mr. Roussel?
Excuse me. Yes, what this does, this amends the ordinance. As you know, we've been encouraging film production in the parish, and this is the third rendition of what our fees are, and I'm hoping that these are comparable fees from the legal department. Evidently did some research and got really in depth with it, but it does set out new fees. My only concern is that by Muni Code, and what happens is the film industry goes and they look at what's on the website, and they'll be looking at the old fees until we update the Muni Code or the website. So if there's a press release that could possibly be prepared on this legislation to show what the new fees are, or at least to encourage those in the movie industry that we do have new and reasonable fees, that would be appreciated, because as an example, what we're changing, we were charging $3,000 per hour, at least that's what the ordinance said, and $4,000 per day on some facilities, and it just wasn't competitive with the surrounding area. So having said that, I'll ask for a vote on the item today.
Mr. Black, want to comment?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. Mr. Landry, I'm assuming you helped draft this particular ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Did you take out completely, or you're not going to amend the notification when using parish roads to the public? We discussed that, but I don't see it in the amendment.
I didn't put that one in this particular one. This one was focused only on the fee structure changes. Now, we did do a notice amendment last year. I thought that included notifying people on the street.
It did, but the discussion that you and I had, and Ms. Bradley as well, is that when they tried to film on FL at Bear about a month ago.
Oh, I see. Yes, sir.
The ordinance, the actual existing ordinance, requires a 2-week minimum notification to surrounding residents that's going to be affected. So therefore, we issued the permit kind of illegally, a little, in my opinion.
That is correct, and a lot of that had to do with the Muni Code problem that Councilman Roussel just mentioned. That one was a sui generis foul up. I'll admit that's true, but apparently it did go off and not cause too much trouble. But they're supposed to have notice. So there's really no need to change the ordinance. We have to enforce it correctly and make sure that it's promulgated so that people know what the rules
I would
are.
like to change it. I think 2 weeks is probably a little bit too much.
You think it's too long?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's the discussion we had. I mean, I think a week would be sufficient, or maybe a few days.
I do remember this discussion with you. I just didn't realize you were saying that I thought it was more aspirational rather than a request to put it into the legislation.
Yeah,
so that's my
I think we probably
misinterpretation.
And I also would request that our staff is educated on the ordinance.
I've been working on that, yes, sir.
Because we're still using 1768, which is not in Muni Code, as Mr. Russo said. But that is the law, and it's not being utilized properly. I know the sheriff's office just had an incident wherein they were trying to charge, the parish was trying to charge $3,000 a day for the use of the prison. That's a special district. So they pretty much set the rate. It doesn't fall into this ordinance. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of education that needs to be done before we just keep putting laws out. Make sure that folks, Mike, please, understand the ordinances.
Yes, sir. I've been working with Mr. Mike, and I'm working with our public information officer, and we're going to get this promulgated so that as many people out there will know. And in fact, it's my understanding that we should have a dedicated space online just for our film ordinance.
All right, thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Wait, Shane, Mr. Russo has something to say.
Before you leave, first of all, I want to make one change on line 36. So I'd like to withdraw it and resubmit it with $400 instead of $40 per day for the rental of Fort Jackson. And the second thing is, because it's not listed in here, Mr. Black's concern, and it's not it's not wiping out what's already on the books, his concern will be addressed anyway?
Yeah, well, I can write another ordinance
What I'm
to
saying,
amend, yes.
This says an ordinance to amend Article 6, Chapter 14 of the Plaquemines Parish Code of Ordinances relative to film commercial. It doesn't say that we're taking anything out. We're just replacing it with this. So procedurally is what I'm trying to get to.
Oh, well, I see what you're saying. You can do it that way. It's understood that you're amending it to replace it.
But if we're not amending the section or
No, it's not. This legislation will not affect what Mr. Black was talking about.
That'll still be in there, so the notice will go out as...
It's still going to be a 2-week notice.
Right, okay, so you want to change it to 1 week.
He wants it to be 1.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure that at least the 2 weeks is still in there.
The 2 weeks is still in there, yes, sir. Understood.
The change on line 36 and X for a second again.
But I can change the notice in a subsequent piece of legislation.
Okay, the changes offered on line 36, B will read $400 a day for the rental of Fort Jackson instead of $40 a day, offered by Mr. Russo, seconded by Mr. Black. Any comments or questions from the table? Audience? Does he have a question? Yeah. No. Hearing none, the machine is open. This ordinance passes 9-0. Regarding item 6.2, Mr. Edgecombe is going to defer that item. 6.5, please, Ms. Ball. Oh, I'm sorry. B.
In order to transfer funding from the Levy Lift Project WBV-09A and Levy Lift Project WBV-12 to the East Bank Sediment Pipeline and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Vince, Mr. Frellis, can explain the project, what its intent, what it does, what it do.
This was the sediment pipeline we're talking about that we were going to team up St. Bernard, and we needed $700,000 like we had talked about last meeting. And as far as I understand, that the $700,000 that we need can come from the I think it was the Jesuit Ben levy, if I'm not mistaken. This money was left over. The monies that was left over this project is not needed. Again, as far as I understand, and that we could move these dollars to this project. If we don't participate in the project, St. Bernard will go on with it themselves. And then what's questionable about the thing is if we decide we want to do projects off of that pipeline, will they let us use it? Because there's going to be like $100 million worth of projects, like me and Mr. Roussel spoke about at the CZM meeting. We will have to probably run our own pipeline, which is going to be a mob of probably 1.4 million rather than 700,000. So, you know, it's up to the council, you know, make the decision if they want to put up this 700,000 or not. Like, again, that's up to you guys.
Now, in regards to what you just said, and I'm going to let you speak in just a second, Mr. Russo. There are potential projects restoration projects that we may be doing off of this pipeline?
Yes, that's the idea of it.
Okay.
I
As
mean, that's
well
the
as St.
idea of
Bernard.
teaming up with St. Bernard. Like I said, we're going to have like about $100 million worth of projects that's going to.
Are any of those in the
tap off of
master
this.
plan?
Those are in the master plan and also on the east bank of the river.
Okay. Mr. Russo?
Once again, I'm not in support of taking this REACH B2 money, which the public has, in Plaquemines Parish, is paying on every year. The project is, while it's a good project, it's a concept. It's not a project that has been designed or actually even know where we're going. And as far as having to build our own pipeline, you know, I don't see that as being a problem in the future. If St. Bernard moves forward with this pipeline and crossing, what happens is once they build the project, they pick the pipe up anyway. They only leave the crossings under the highways and so forth. So if they leave the pipe there, I don't think that the CPRA or the state and their projects are going to be denied to use this project. And I don't see Plaquemines Parish coming up with enough money to build its own project to try to have to go and use the same pipeline. So it's a convoluted situation, maybe a good project, but again, it's local money, and I've never found any money in Plaquemines Parish yet that's not needed. So my position is that if we're going to use REACH B2 money, we need to keep it on, for instance, the Jesuit Bend levee projects and the projects in Plaquemines Parish, because every year we make that note of $8.5 million, that's what we're paying on. And I wouldn't want to be paying on developing a plan that's going to cost $1.5 million to sit on a shelf until they find funding, which is probably many years down the road. So, you know, I'm repeating myself from the last meetings. I just don't support taking this source of funding. If you had other funding for the project and wanted to participate, that would be different.
Councilman Roussel, the way I understand the pipeline is going to stay there, they're not going to pick it up.
Well, that's what you understand, but that's not what I understand. So we just have a difference of agreement.
Okay. That's it? Thank you.
Mr. Edgecombe?
I have to agree with Mr. Roussel, and as far as Jesuit Bend area, there's more projects coming with levy, and I definitely want to move none of that money. Thank you, sir. That's all, ma'am.
Mr. B?
I offer.
You want to move to offer
Yes, I
to
wanna
legislation?
offer.
Mr. Bartholomew offers this legislation to move for a vote. Is there a second?
I had to call, no second, go ahead, no second.
Is there a second? Is there a second on the legislation? Legislation dies for lack of a second.
Thank God. All right, what's next?
6D, an ordinance to amend the five-year capital improvements plan, improvements English Turn and West Bank project, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Roussel, Mr. Burt?
Yeah, what this is, I think this is more of an administrative function as far as accounting for the funding that will support this project. This is a $7 million LRA Katrina HUD-funded project, which will extend the public sewage line from Idlewild down to La Receipt. And I believe Mr. Barbe has been briefed on this project as well from a administration side, so I'll entertain any questions. But as you know, the Jesuit Bend area does not have public sewage, and this will get it, like I said, from Idlewild down to La Receipt, with several tie-ins mixed in. So I would ask for everyone's support. This project has been designed and engineered, and I think they're wrapping up a few right-of-way acquisitions, and it will be out for bid hopefully within the next month.
This is grant funding from LRA, correct?
Yes.
Questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. Legislation passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
E, an ordinance to amend the five-year capital improvements plan drainage Jesuit Bend project and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Burt?
Yes, I will offer the changes that I passed out and also emailed to everyone yesterday.
Mr. Burt offers with changes.
I'll read those briefly.
Seconded by Mr. Edgecombe. Go ahead, Mr. Burt. You're not on? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Line 8, scratch out Line 9, we'll insert $20,000 from the Government Complex Council Building Project and $40,832 from the Study Rose O'Kane Infestation Project. Basically what this is a project that dates back to 2014. It's already been bid. The contractor's been selected. And basically it's a change order. There was some there was an interference with some utilities that was identified. And this funding will cover that change order. And what I'm being told from engineering and the grants department that this will be refunded back to the parish 100% from GOSEP and FEMA. So this is just to expedite the project. It's long overdue, and I would ask for my colleagues' support.
So the 20,000, that's remaining funds left over from the council building project?
There's actually 40,000 in this building complex project, 20 which I'm asking for here, and then I have another ordinance that will take the other 20 to provide card readers. So
Okay.
that's where it's coming from. Yes, ma'am.
And the Rose O'Kane, that's not ongoing, the study?
According to Mr. Vince at the last council meeting, the council appropriated 50,000 and only 10,000 is needed.
Okay.
And he graciously offered that additional money up, so I accepted his offer and
Okay.
legislation before you today.
Find out about the funding. Ms.
Thank you,
Salvin?
Mr.
Yes, Mr. Burt, I'm going to respectfully ask, that $40,000 overage, is that just dedicated to the northern end of the parish, or would that be a possibility that by any chance that some of the southern end could have dipped into that extra 20,000 that you left in there, the remainder?
Oh, you're off. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You know, because I'm all for the project, and I mean, you know, it was just, it really was a sad thing that you know, subdivision, the magnitude of in Jesuit Bend subdivision and all was not included in the drainage and in the sewage. You know, that was not the right thing to do. But at the same token, I mean, it almost appears to me that the government complex funding is just earmarked for the northern end of the parish. You know, if that was funds that was left over, you know, I'm thinking you kind of hogging the money.
By no means, Ms. Salvin, am I hogging the money.
Let's have some inside information before we get a hold of it.
Right.
What I did was I took the five-year capital improvements plan budget line item and found where some general fund money was at and asked finance what was available, what was not available, what was encumbered, and what was remaining, and there was 40,000 left, and I went after it. I mean, but I would graciously give you the extra 20,000 if this council will vote for it.
No,
I don't disagree.
No, I just wanted to highlight that part of it, you know, but just be a little bit more favorable to your colleagues sometime, you know.
Let me just comment, Mr. Burt, don't be too generous because your next ordinance moves the rest of that money into the card reader project in this building. So don't be promising Ms. Burt, Ms. Salvin something that we're not going to give her.
See, the audience, I just want you to understand how things operate around here.
Yeah.
Money's already spent, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I just won't get any false hopes on that 20.
I mean, I just want us to be as respectful when other parts of the parish come up and ask, because I'm going to be coming to my colleagues for some BP funding. You know, we're going to,
infrastructure, yeah.
That's correct. See?
About that 50, I'll just take it back.
No, sit down. Ms. Salvin, I respect your comments, and I will gladly take those under advisement. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, machine is open. Legislation passes 9-0. Next item, please.
6F, an ordinance to amend the 2018 General Fund Operating Expenditure Budget, Legislative Liaison Department, and Legal Services Department, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Russo?
Yes, I'm going to offer with the following changes that I'm distributing now. Earlier in the week, I offered with these changes, and as you can see, we're not taking it out of the legal fees, we're taking out of the excess fuel ferry fees. Not fees, but ferry budget.
Mr. Russo offers with the changes. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Lapine.
What this does is it honors our commitment to a contract for Mercury, who is our legislative consultant, lobbyist, actually in Washington, D.C. And the purpose of this is to match the money that the port has put up for the contract as well, and we're partners in the contract. As you know, it's been a priority for this administration and this council to have representation in D.C. to work on various issues, and this is the part of the funding that we have designated. We know that the large ferry has been out of service quite some time, off and on, and so the excess money in here we feel will be comfortable, and if we do have a problem at the end of the year, we know we will have to dig deep and find something else to make up the difference.
Any other comments or questions on this item from the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open.
Thank you.
Legislation passes 9-0.
6H, a resolution authorizing and directing the parish president or his designee to clean the drainage ditch along Highway 39 between Phoenix and Bohemia by whatever means necessary and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Bartholomew? Mr. Bartholomew offers. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Russo. Mr. Bartholomew?
As is.
Mr. Bartholomew offers as is. Is there any comments or questions?
My comment is it just cleans the ditch.
Right.
Drainage canal.
Got plenty of them. Can we amend it and include all?
You do what?
Can we amend it and include all drainage ditches?
I don't care. It's up to you.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I mean, that was my question. Can we just make an amendment and say, I mean, clean,
I'm just trying to get that done. You come back and do
a
everything I wanted.
resolution for you guys to work from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and, I mean, where does it stop?
Well, I do know Mr. Byrd had legislation last year.
We passed it 9-0.
We passed 9-0.
Let me say this. I think everyone received a copy of the brome that I sent to each council member looking at the condition
Yes, sir.
of that drainage. And if you could sit here and tell me there's no need for that, I have some serious problems. If not being one of the worst, if not the worst, is to get the
I
water
don't think
out.
anyone's saying there's no need, Mr. Bartholomew.
Because the water, the problem is it can't get to the pump station to drain this stuff out. It needs to be cleaned. Now, if y'all want to change it, that's fine too. I don't have a problem with that, whatever y'all want to do. I'll get along with all 8 people, that's all right, whatever y'all decide.
You finished, Mr. Black?
Yes,
Mr. Russo?
Yes, Mr. Bartholomew, I understand your drainage situation, and I've been watching that piece of equipment sit on that levee every time I go to the council meeting for the last several months. So I'm hoping that they will utilize it and clean your ditch one day, but, you know, this is simply a request to clean a ditch.
That's what it is.
Now, you know,
That's all it is.
I'm requesting to clean all the ditches, just like as Mr. Black said, but
Well, you can drop, yeah, I want y'all to do that, that's fine.
you want to make the amendment? I'll make an amendment if you want to go that route.
I want this to Phoenix to Bohemia. Now, if you want to
I
do
know.
something else, that's fine.
Well, I mean, I don't know what this does other than ask the administration to clean a ditch.
That's all I'm asking, from Phoenix to Bohemia.
So let me ask you this. What does this resolution do to the administration? Does it make it a priority, or does it just simply request to clean the ditch?
Oh, here we go.
You want to speak?
You can speak.
Well, earlier I asked for more help, but we're going to put that on the side. Councilman Juneau and I and Councilman Burt was at a meeting this past week trying to get someone part-time that used to dig the canals. And of course, it's mired down because it's going to be a part-time worker and civil service and things like that. So, and we don't have that kind of expertise here anymore. And that's the problem I have. As far as ditches go, I would love all of you guys get together and tell me who wants me to go where, when, because when it starts to happen, y'all going to be looking at me, well, how come you're over there and how come you're over here? And I just want to give me just a little bit of leeway. I'm going to try and get to everybody's ditch anywhere. Right now I'm doing priorities. Ditches that drain sewage, ditches that drain the highways, ditches that are just overgrown completely. And so it's going to take time. Councilman Bartholomew, I live right there. I watch it every day, and I know what you're talking about. And if I get the right person to do that job, we'll start swinging some mud. However, when I put 2 people there, there'll be 2 people somewhere else, and I'm going to do everybody's district as it comes along. But you guys are going to have to pick which ones you want first, second, and third, because I got 20 in each district almost. I know I'm exaggerating. So, and I know I have some, everybody gave me 4 or 5, and they're not ditches, some of them's roads and stuff like that. But it's going to be very difficult to spread myself that thin and do everybody at one time.
I just, and I respect your wanting to work with us, Mr. Beshel. I just think there's been such a backlog. That's the issue that you're dealing with. So, Mr.
Yes, as a point of clarification, this does not give the administration the authority to go out and hire or create any positions. Okay, I just want that to be clear, because when you talk about, hiring the individual part-time and all of these things, this is not what this does. Correct?
Right.
We're all on the same page with that?
You good?
It was initiated by councilmen.
I realize that, but I mean, I support this because it's simply a request to get a ditch dug.
Right.
But I don't support it if we're going to go out and start putting people on machines that are not in the civil service system or approved by contract by the government.
Exactly. That's what we were trying to make a pathway for.
Oh, so that's what this is, the front door?
No, no, this was initiated by 2 councilmen, and I went to the meeting, and we were trying to see if we could rectify a situation parish-wide.
I know. So I'm asking, what is the next step then?
Putting a person on a machine and throwing some dirt.
That's already on the payroll?
That's already on the payroll.
Okay.
Mr. Byrd? You good? Mr. Bartholomew?
Yeah, I just wanted to allude, that's nowhere in the legislation what Mr. Russell alluding to, that to hire somebody. I'm not looking to do that because we don't have any funds to do any of that.
No, I think he just wanted to make sure
Oh,
administration understood.
well, it doesn't say that. It just specifically doesn't say that. But anyway, if nobody have any other comments, I call for the question.
Question has been called. Machine is open.
There's 1 vote pending.
Go. Go back.
Legislation passes 9-0.
I, an ordinance to create an exception to the hiring freeze for the unclassified Director of Recreation position and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I'm going to offer this with the changes that are being passed out. At this time, the Recreation Department, oh, well, let me offer first, I'm sorry. I'll offer with these changes that are being passed out, and I'll ask for a second. Seconded by Mr. Black. The changes are to scratch out on line 1, unclassified, on line 2, Director of Recreation, and insert foreman. On line 9, deplete that line, completely take it out. Line 10 will be drainage stock shop foreman, position 760-1141-01. No, that's striked out. It's foreman. At this time, the Recreation Department is currently being run with the existing employees. And there's a consensus, I feel, from the council in the community that our Recreation Department is in much need of revamping and trying to bring it up to where it needs to be for the youth of our community. Not sure that a director of recreation is needed at this time. So I elected to utilize this ordinance to replace it with a foreman for drainage, which is much needed. Funding and all the directors, that position will still be available at this time, but we're just not going to move on that legislation today. I think that we need to have some serious talks regarding our recreation program and the future of our recreation program for the youth of our community. So I'm utilizing this time to not move on this and visit it at a later date. Any questions? Ms. Salvant?
Yes, I'm not following your line of thought on this, Ms. Williams. So you sort of need to not to replace the director or not to go out and act on the legislation that's already in place, right?
Not at this time, ma'am. That's correct.
One part you say that there is a need to revamp the recreation department.
I'm not sure that a director is needed at this time.
We've been going back and forth on this issue in recreation from a foreman, from even prior to Mr. Freeman being, from a recreation director to a superintendent to I don't know what's the great difficulty in attempting to get something in place, as you said, for our youth. This position is becoming so political. You know, I don't know what's the problem here. I'm still trying to find, I think it's some hidden agenda here that's not being said up front, but obviously is some discussions going on, and I'm not a part of it. I haven't been privy to it because I'm not trying to. I'm trying to figure out what's the problem. The recreation, whatever, be it that the council, however the council see fit, the buck stops with Mr. Cormier. He's going to do the final selection. So I don't know what the problem is. So we're going to just. This is more of a hindrance to me by not moving forward with the recreation person. We're not doing our kids any good by not acting on it, kicking the can down the road.
Well, Ms. Salvant, with all due respect, there was some verbiage that was stated that someone was going to be appointed, but the people that's currently in the department would be running the department, and that did not settle well with me. I don't think that there should be someone appointed just because someone wants to give someone a job. I think that it needs to be a qualified individual, whether it's a director or a superintendent. And I'm not opposed to you moving on this, but I just feel that at this time, a foreman, when I was contacted by Mr. Simpson, that there was a position that had not been, the hiring freeze had not been lifted that we approved. there was an opportunity to try to get this person in ahead of a director of recreation.
This is insane. It's totally insane. It's a political move here.
Ma'am, I have no.
And the bottom line is, the buck stops with Mr. Cormier. No matter where you go or what you do or when you do it, he's going to have the final say on.
And that's fine. And if you want to utilize legislation and offer it, I just felt that when I was approached by Mr. Simpson, that this was a more needed position at this time.
And you was just approached by Mr. Simpson all of a sudden.
Mr. Simpson contacted me yesterday when the heavy rains came down.
So there was a need prior to yesterday, I'm sure.
The position was appointed. We approved the funding, but the hiring, it was just brought to my attention that the hiring freeze was not lifted for this position.
I think this is just another swipe at the administration.
I haven't.
And I don't.
That's not my intent, ma'am.
And I don't want to be having any part of it.
Well, then.
I don't have a dog in this hunt. It doesn't matter. But I know the position is needed, and we need to stop playing games with our kids. We need to stop playing games with our kids. The recreation department need to get some stability, and we need to move forward with it. And here we are, it's just a back and forth and a back and forth. I don't want a party. I don't want any party to this. And no, I won't be designing legislation to do anything of what you just recommended. But I won't be supporting this legislation.
That's your prerogative, Ms. Alvan.
Absolutely.
I respect it. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Mr. Bartholomew?
As far as the status of the director position, that's still in the workforce, is it not?
Yes, it is. This was
Mr.
just to lift the
Roussel-
hiring freeze.
I mean, Mr. Cormier can go out and appoint a director. He don't need to come back before this council.
We
He
have
can
to
hire
lift the
somebody.
hiring freeze. This
Why would-
legislation was to
wait,
lift
wait,
the
wait.
hiring freeze.
Huh?
The position is still available.
Yes.
This legislation was to lift the hiring freeze.
No, that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about the director that retired.
Yes.
Retired. The position still is open,
Yes, it is.
so he can appoint somebody to that position.
Once we lift the hiring
So
freeze.
how's it right when we put a hiring freeze on that? We never did
All
put a hiring
positions
freeze.
have a hiring freeze.
Not that, because it just happened. Not that position.
It's my understanding that when positions are vacated,
No.
the hiring freeze has to be lifted.
No, I think it has to be a part of that position or that job when we did the hiring freeze have to be put in that partially.
Miss Angie?
According to ordinance 15-133, it says an ordinance placing a hiring freeze on all new positions and all vacant positions of Plaquemines Parish government.
When?
Including classified and unclassified.
When? What's the date? That was filed.
This was adopted October 8th.
That's
but
it, there it
Until you
is.
supersede this,
No.
it's my understanding, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I
Explanation.
think this is in effect.
Okay,
until
let's
you-
get an interpretation then.
That's a good idea.
All right.
What it is we initiated a
Let him-
hiring
let
freeze
him
in
see.
2015.
Yeah, but this had happened after that. I can understand prior to that. That's just my
Well, why
question. I'm
have-
just trying to get
Well,
understanding.
we've lifted the hiring freeze on every other position since then.
Yeah, but it was in, because when we did it, all the position prior to the legislation was part of the hiring freeze, the freeze. So, anytime somebody retires or be laid off or the position is
In order
not
to
filled,
hire another
it goes into the hiring freeze.
Freeze. Yes.
I don't see that. That's puzzling to me.
It's since 2015.
What?
The
I
ordinance was
understand
implemented in
what you're
15.
saying, but I always thought it didn't.
Once the position was
after the fact-
vacated.
After the fact, it shouldn't be applied until after the fact. I'm just questioning. But go ahead on. He's looking, but go ahead on, do what you got to do.
Mr. Mr. Juneau, I'm sorry. Mr. Juneau?
Yes, I think we need a recreation director for our kids. And I think we should advertise for a recreation director, somebody with a background of recreation, of directing in another state, another parish, I don't care where. But we should advertise and have at least 4 or 5 come in and tell us their expertise or tell the committee that's involved in it their expertise and bring somebody in here that can get out of the political mood. That's how I feel.
I'm not saying that there is not a need for a leader in our recreation department. What I'm saying is that it is my intent at this time that a foreman for drainage is more needed than a recreation director.
I agree with you, but it's taken us 5 months to get a drainage people to work. Now it's going to take us 10 months to get a foreman. You know, if we don't do something with the civil service, somebody's got to talk to her and tell her to advertise for whatever we ask for. That's how I feel.
Mr. Byrd? No? Mr. Cormier?
I'm awaiting Mr. Garrett's interpretation before I respond. Please.
We've done it for every other position.
I looked at the ordinance. The way the ordinance is phrased, it doesn't indicate, it just states all new positions and all vacant positions, and it applies to both classified and unclassified. As I appreciate the way y'all have been operating is that if a position is vacated, then becomes a vacant position, whether it's vacated because someone retired or whether they quit. And I've been informed that civil service has taken the position with regard to classified positions that without a specific hiring freeze, they won't move forward with regard to filling that position. The ordinance from 2015 is somewhat ambiguous because it doesn't indicate whether it's supposed to apply to positions that become vacant in the future or whether it is only limited to positions that were vacant on the day the ordinance took effect. So there is an ambiguity there. And so part of it is just looking back to how y'all been operating since 2015.
So with that being said, since the Director of Recreation is an unclassified position, and it doesn't specify that we have to or we don't have to lift the hiring freeze, Mr. Cormier can appoint someone.
Well, again, I think that's what I was trying to say. I think the position, the ordinance has an ambiguity in it because it doesn't indicate whether it applies to positions that become vacant after the adoption of the ordinance, or if it only applies to positions that were vacant on the date that the ordinance took effect.
It's just been understood that was our intent, but
And like I said, and when there is an ambiguity, and you've operated under that ambiguity, what a court would generally do is look to sort of what has been your operation, how have you been doing it.
okay.
And I do believe it would, and again, it's relevant how civil service has been treating it because the way the ordinance is set forth, it imposes the same level of hiring freeze on both classified and unclassified positions. And so there's really not a way where you could consider the ordinance to have one meaning for classified positions and another meaning for unclassified positions because I don't think that would be a valid interpretation of the language in the ordinance. So I think you have to consider it the same way both ways. But it is unclear whether it intended to say positions vacant as of the effective date of this act or whether it intended to apply to positions that also became vacant in the future.
Okay. Mr. Cormier?
Now, first of all, Chairwoman Williams, I had requested that this be introduced, and I requested input from the council to select who would be the next Director of Recreation, because as Councilman Juneau and Councilman Savant duly noted, delay will harm our children, will harm our Recreation Department. Now, so I didn't receive a phone call, and maybe I understand. It's just like we're all busy, but this came as a complete and total surprise to me. And I don't dispute that we're short across the board, manpower. I don't dispute that there's a need for a drainage foreman. But I think at this time, the need for our recreation department that in 2009 had 33 men working there, and in 2018 has 13. It's a loss of 20
Another issue.
people.
Right, I agree. Yeah. They need more manpower, but a director's not going to get out there and cut grass.
Well, I've informed every individual with whom I've spoke, that they would be hands-on, because we're too short-staffed in the summer just to keep the grass cut. Everyone has to be able to do everything. But this is why a couple council meetings ago, I requested in my status message to remove the possibility of another lawsuit by the council against this administration. I requested that Ordinance 15-133 be rescinded so that this administration, the Cormier administration's hands will not be tied, because my father's administration's hands were tied by this hiring freeze. And as we just heard from your own attorney, not the parish attorney, it's ambiguous. And so if I go out, I am certainly of the opinion that the children of this parish are not receiving the funds and resources to our recreation department that they've received before. That's a fact. And so delay only will cause harm. You know, I'm put in the conundrum of I'm looking for collaboration from this council.
And with all due respect, I'm not saying that, you know, I am all in favor of the recreation. My children have been a part of the recreation department. I'm not saying that there is not a need. Recreation has a lot of needs other than just a director. My position on this was that at this time, I thought that it was more pertinent that we get someone in drainage than we do in recreation. Not saying that one, you know, that there's not a need for someone to lead the recreation department. Please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I am in favor of our recreation department, which needs drastic improvements.
The difference is that, as we all know, as we've noted, Councilman Juneau noted, Councilman Black noted, if, you know, this changes this whole ordinance. If you go with the original intent, what I requested, then that hiring will be accomplished, as opposed to sending more paperwork to civil service and getting lost for another 6 or 7 months or however long. I mean, again, we can all hope for more expeditious treatment, but given that the director is by herself, I've sent someone over there instead of the help that I offered being used to rehire people. I was informed that it was being used to conduct evaluations, which sort of didn't please me at all, because the intent was that the help was to help with the hiring, not evaluations, because there again, we have a difference of interpretation where I am in agreement with this council that the ordinance number 18, I think 13, don't waste time with bureaucratic paperwork of evaluations. Give everyone the 3% raise and move on to hiring people. We're in an emergency situation with manpower. But again, short of suing civil service, I don't know. We're exploring every alternative possible. So that's yet another reason why I'm dismayed and surprised at this drastic change. I do know this. We're in basketball season. The grass is going to start growing real soon again, and baseball needs a lot of time and work and preparation for our children.
I agree. Can I get a sec? Oh, Mr. Black seconded the changes. Yeah, he did. Mr. Burt?
I'd just like to ask one question. Has that recreation director job been promised to anyone?
I specifically wanted to put a name into this ordinance that now is being completely changed, and because I was looking for input from this council, I wasn't trying to. And I was informed and that by Chairwoman Williams that the council did not want to put a name into the legislation.
No, I said I wasn't going to put a name. I was going to let you fill the name because it's your responsibility to appoint this person.
Yes, and now we're talking about drainage foreman. So
I agree with what Mr. Juno said. I think this should be an item that should be drafted, put out for whatever you want to call it, for advertisement, and select the best candidate. I was not aware that you had a candidate selected until before the council meeting.
my administration takes recreation seriously. I've already spoken to 3 candidates, and I did have someone in mind. And, like I said, the numbers speak for themselves. 2009, 33 men, 2018, 13.
Director to lead 13 men.
We need as many hands on deck as we can possibly find as quickly as possible.
That's all I have.
Mr. Lapine?
I guess for some clarity, I'm going to ask finance. This ordinance is just to lift the hiring freeze. The money is available in the pump operator's budget, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and he will probably make someone lateral or somebody in the department into that position, correct? I mean, basic, okay. But the money is there for that position. The money is there for the director position in recreation, which I think is vital. We need a recreation director. Is that correct?
Yes.
The recreation. So we're not talking about moving funds, moving them. So in my eyes, or my interpretation, that Mr. Cormier still has that discretion to appoint a director. Whoever he wants, and brings it to us. He don't have to even bring it to us. He can appoint it without bringing it to us. But I think we get lost in translation that he wants to put it on us. So I agree, Mr. Cormier, you need a recreation director. I agree that you should go out and look. I don't think you have to lift the hiring freeze for that. If that's who you want to hire, okay? But this ordinance itself is just lifting the hiring freeze to hire pump operators. So I think we get a little bit lost in translation. But that we're not moving money from one place to another. But that's the way I understand it.
Ms. Salvant?
Yeah, to address you, Mr. Lapine, it's not just, if you notice on line 9, it's striking the direction of recreation.
Just for this ordinance, no ma'am, it's not defunding the position. It's striking it out of, it's amending this to lift the hiring freeze. We're not lifting it for the director of recreation, we're lifting it for the foreman for drainage.
Okay, yes, we lifted it for drainage, but all of a sudden, now there's a great need for a foreman, a drainage foreman.
No, there was a need. We approved the position. The hiring freeze was never lifted.
I understand that. Mr. Beshel said there is a need for tractor drivers or whatever he's requesting. We're not doing that.
They've all been approved already, Ms. Salvant.
We've already addressed some of the request that was made.
No, ma'am, all vacant positions and funded positions, the hiring freeze was lifted on that ordinance at the first meeting of this year, except this one. Correct, Ms. Angie?
I'm sorry.
All vacant positions and funded positions, the hiring freeze was lifted on that ordinance that we did at the beginning of this year, except for this one.
Correct.
I'm sorry, but Ms. Angie's not the legal interpreter of that.
He's in finance.
That's finance. This is a legal interpretation. That's why I waited.
It was a question
Your
of the
attorneys.
hiring freeze.
Yes, but she's not the proper personnel to answer that question.
I need to go back to Ms. Williams, but the question was, this ordinance started out addressing the director of recreation,
Yes, ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what happens to the director of recreation now if you're going to utilize this actual piece of legislation to address the foreman? So what happened? So
The hiring freeze is not lifted yet on that position. That's the only thing that happens.
and that's where I have a problem, because now you're putting the director of recreation on hold. You're kicking it down the road.
Well,
you're kicking it down the road. It may not ever come up. Then, because now once this legislation is acted on, somebody have yeah, right. And there we go. We back to the same point. Who's going to introduce it?
Well,
then it becomes who's going to introduce it?
Don't need to be introduced.
Oh, I know I can, but that's the point from the beginning. This is what Nicole said from the beginning. She didn't want to introduce it. All she was doing was lifting the hiring freeze. That's where the question came in from the beginning. No one wanted to introduce it. They just wanted to address the hiring freeze aspect of the legislation. So let's be clear.
Mr. Russo? Oh, Mr. Black, I'm sorry, you're next in line.
Yeah, I got a couple points. I apologize, Mr. Lapine, but I don't agree with you, nor do I agree with the president in this matter. I think this is pretty clear, as finance said, as Mr. Bird's ordinance said, it's a hiring freeze. Once a position becomes vacant, it goes into the classification which is frozen. If you listen to Mr. Garrett, I know you're anxious to speak, Mr. President, but he did say there's some ambiguity, but the judge would usually look at the precedent that's been set. I think the precedent that's been set amongst his counsel is that once a position becomes vacant, it goes back to being frozen. So although he says there's ambiguity, he also says that there's a precedent that was set, which is that all positions are then frozen once become vacant. If you want to compromise with me, I think we need a director of recreation, or we need to reform the recreation department in some kind of capacity. If you would like me to introduce an ordinance for the director of recreation, I will, but I would ask you to work with me to put stipulations in it. One of those being to have a minimum requirements, possibly a minimum requirement of a 4-year degree in education, because I think this is critical for education our youth. Ma'am?
She said paying what? Because the pay of the
No, I think the pay needs to be increased to be commensurate with the position. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with increasing the pay to be commensurate with the position, but I think we also need to have some standards as well, because it is a critical position for our youth. So if you want to work with me on that, I'll be willing to do it. But
okay, Mr. Russo.
If I may address, there was points made directed toward me. Councilman Black, we've gone round and round. This isn't anything personal, but I've got to ask the question because you wanted to try to put your spin on the record. Is that your legal opinion? Okay, thank you. That's why I waited. That's why I waited. Mr. Garrett's opinion, and so what I'm looking for, and that's why I requested a couple council meetings ago, is for the handcuffs to be taken off of this administration, but I was pleased to hear. I think Mr. Garrett's legal opinion stands for itself, and that's why I was glad to hear it.
all I didn't give a legal opinion. I just summarized with the council attorney's position. So I'm asking, am I wrong in my summary of what your position is or your opinion of this is? Which is that, yes, you understand that the ordinance has some ambiguity in it, but with that said, that a judge would likely take precedent over the matter and say that the council's intent and the precedent that's been set with the council is that once a position becomes vacant, it becomes frozen? Is that what you said?
Yes, I think that was an accurate representation. Another thing, and I've also looked back at the civil service rules, and again, because the way the ordinance is phrased, it applies the exact same freeze to classified or unclassified positions. So I think civil service considers that if someone quits, is fired, or retires, their position then becomes vacant. And I think the court would look at how that word vacant is interpreted as to the classified positions and apply it to those unclassifieds. I did just have a question about the 3 administrative directors. I do think those are somewhat different because the charter specifically provides for the mechanism of hiring those, and I don't think the council could, by ordinance, say, we're not going to fill an administrative council position. So administrative director position, but the recreation director is not one of those 3 administrative directors that are explicitly provided for in the charter.
All right, well, I appreciate it, and I'm glad that a fully licensed attorney was able to agree with just a
Okay. We get
little
a
old
little out of
councilman.
line
And
here.
congratulations on your law degree, Mr. Cormier. I'm done.
Mr. Russo?
Yeah.
No, I cut you off. Hold on. Yes.
Am I on?
Yes.
I'm on. Can you hear me? Good. Well, this is getting to be monotonous. Let me clarify for the record. I'm not an attorney, and this is not a courtroom, and this has not been an issue for 3 years. We have operated on this premise that when we have a hiring freeze and a position becomes vacant, it is automatically vacant. Doesn't say anything about non-classified or classified or when it was become vacant. This has not been an issue for 3 years. It's not convoluted to me. It's not confusing. It's very plain and simple that when a position is vacant, that's what it is. It's vacant. This hiring freeze applies as a management tool by this body to manage the payroll because of the fact of a lack of funds. Now, you know, in my opinion, it's not a legal opinion, but it's an opinion that we have operated under for many, many years, at least 3. I would say that all positions, once they become vacant, are subject to the hiring freeze. I disagree with the comments that have made that certain positions can be hired without lifting the hiring freeze, and that's my unprofessional legal opinion as not a lawyer. This is ridiculous to be arguing this. This has gotten to a point where this is all about somebody getting a position in the recreation department, because I don't see us making any progress. This short agenda has deteriorated into a very long agenda. We have wasted more time here, and we have created confusion, and we have not settled the issue. My position is, if you want to unfreeze the recreation director, introduce the legislation. If you want to unfreeze the former director, introduce the legislation. The funds are there. I don't see any handcuffs anywhere. All of these positions that were funded in the budget were passed and the hiring freeze was lifted in hopes that we wouldn't spend 2018 on this specific subject and this debate. And it's a waste of the public's time, and it's a waste of our effort to continue to battle this. The Finance Department knows what positions were funded in the budget. The Council Secretary has the ordinance that lifted the hiring freeze. Why are we here debating this again? She introduced a legislation to handle one, and she switched it. I would hope that we could come to a conclusion and move on.
Thank you, Mr.
And that's not my opinion as an attorney.
Ms. Salvant?
May everybody great wisdom, can someone tell me has a salary adjustment been made for the person in charge now? Has a salary adjustment been made for the person that's in charge? Now that we want to kick this can down the road, we want to just leave the person in charge. Has a salary adjustment been made?
Councilman Trufant, thank you for that question. No, there has not been. And you're correct that the Director of Recreation salary is set at $36,000 a year. So when you look at other departments, other agencies, there's one agency that specifically comes to mind that has 2 directors making over $360,000 a year, but yet the children of this parish only merit $36,000, and now we're going to get a delay again? It's infuriating.
I'd like to call a question on this legislation. I'm offering 6 I with changes that was seconded by Mr. Burt. The question has been called. Machine is open. Resolution passes 7-2 with no votes from Mr. Bartholomew and Ms. Salvant. Next item, please.
J, a resolution asking the oil and gas industry to support coastal sustainability research at area universities and in the construction of a Louisiana Fault Atlas.
I'll offer.
I'm sorry, Mr. Burt.
I'll offer, and I passed out a brief change. We left out a be it resolved, and I'll read that out starting on line 38. Be it resolved by the Plaquemines Parish Council that it hereby asks the oil and gas industry to support coastal sustainability research at area universities and in the construction of a Louisiana Fault Atlas. And I'll offer with those changes.
Mr. Burt offers, seconded by Mr. Edgecombe.
Yeah, what this does, back in 2016, we passed similar legislation. The New Orleans Geological Society approached me or the council asking for support and engaging the local universities in working with the Geological Society to come up with some studies as it relates to land subsidence. So in conjunction with some neighboring parishes, St. Bernard and Jefferson, what this is doing is asking the oil and gas industry to partner with the Geological Society and providing some historical data on subsidence. That way they can work with CPRA and our state agencies as they continue to plan these coastal restoration projects. So this is basically just asking the oil and gas guys who are some of our most valuable employers here in the parish financially and also for jobs to work in conjunction with the local universities and the Geological Society. So I would ask for your support in this legislation. And on behalf of Mr. McClendon, he could not be available today to speak. He had a prior engagement.
Mr. Black? Oh, you removed? Okay. Any other questions or comments from the table? From the audience? Hearing? Miss, wait, let me cut you on, Miss Salvant. Well, just speak loud. You're not on to speak loud.
You're employed by the oil and gas industry. You don't think there's any conflict or anything with you authoring this legislation?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just for the record, I don't work for oil and gas. I work for a private company.
Okay. Just asking.
Machine is open. Legislation passes with 7 yea votes, 1 abstention from Mr. Black, and a no vote from, Ms. Salvant did not vote.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Seven new business. A, introduction of resolutions where suspension is being sought. There are none. 7B, update and presentation by District 7, Councilmember Trufant Salvant.
Ms. Salvant?
Yes, my updates was handled during the president update. Thank you.
Next item, please.
C, District 1 update.
Mr. Bartholomew?
I don't know where to start here, but mainly I guess it's a courthouse issue that because of the rain last week and week before and this week kind of pushes back on completing the last part of the first floor on the courthouse. The parking lot, the rear part of the parking lot was poured and half of the first floor was poured. So soon it dries up a little bit and people come back to work and finish up that first floor. They're going to be pouring hopefully next week after Mardi Gras. That should be finished. Then once that is completed, we shall see the beams or the steel beams going up on the first floor. Then once that is completed, they'll pour the second floor, which won't take that much time to do. Then that thing will just fly from that point forward and move forward. But it's looking, everything is still moving right along, and the company's doing real well with it. And there are no hang-ups. And they also going to tie in the tower to the parking lot. They had left out a section that left the tower ramp and the parking lot separated. So they're making a point to tie that in on the back end. Once it's cured, they're going to come back and take care of that. Sunday, if it doesn't rain that much, hopefully it doesn't rain, we're going to have the annual parade on the East Bank. Carnival parade sponsored by Phoenix Alumni Association, who donates over 85% of their funding go to the Phoenix High School students and the school itself to support the community as well. That's going to take place. So if you're not busy, come take a ride over and participate and spend some money. They would very much appreciate that. Thank the heavy equipment for putting in those pipes in front of our building, our community center. It looks much more appropriate as a Plaquemine Parish public building. In the front, they're not finished, but it looks real well. So I want to thank the President Cormier and his administration for getting that done, and looking forward to finish that. And also, we need to continue to go back and fix the football field that hasn't been completed for the parish on the East Bank. We have no football field for the parish. It's the only place we have is that Dave Van, and they only have baseball fields. But we need to finish the recreation park, the component for football. The community center, we've been having some meetings. There are some people that are concerned, elderly, that's concerned about the cost of the center itself, how much it costs to rent. So I told them one day to have a meeting and to have the administration come in the area and explain. They can just say what they have to say, vent to the administration, or either come forward to the council meeting at the event and vent there, because nothing that I can do has already been in the legislation. I can introduce things, but it may not pass. It may not even get a second. But you have to bring your concerns to the public, and I mean the public, I'm talking about the council as a whole, so they can address your major concerns. Also, the highway, last part of the Highway 15 hasn't been done. There is no money yet, but we've been looking for money to finish that particular project. The other concern is the Point Lahatch Marina water line system. We need to have someone to know where those valves are to turn them off, so that when the freeze comes, we won't have all these issues. I have assigned somebody to go and turn those things off. So that means the valve off, so the pipe won't be able to be burst open by the freeze. Also, during the cold, when we had 26 hours with no utilities on the East Bank. Now, that means the people on the East Bank didn't have no heat nor electricity, because the utility is only provided by electricity. And when that goes out, all the services are out. And that's a terrible thing to be, especially if you're old, to have a home where you have 26 hours of no heat. And we need to address that. We need to address that. And that's one of the things we request for the President to look into the gas. But we also need to put a generator at the center to accommodate those people, that at least we'll have somewhere where they could be if it ever happens again, because there was no contingency plan, or state of emergency plan to accommodate those people. Myself and Auburn Tinson got up at 1:30 in the morning, go and check on senior citizens, the people who live alone, the older people, and made sure that it was okay if they needed any additional help, that we could take them, and we had talked to the sheriff to bring them to the prison to make sure that they could survive overnight by bringing them to the detention center. And he offered the gymnasium in the detention center to accommodate service for the people who need service. So I was very thankful of him to offer that, to make sure that we had somewhere to be. Because if it continued, we would have to make a move, some kind of move, taking the people and bringing them somewhere. So those are issues that need to be done. And the Homeland Security need to have a plan of action when that happens. When it happens, we need to have a plan of action to house people. And then when the water line dropped, the pressure drops so low, you can't drink the water as such. So that means they didn't have any water in place. So we have to make sure all that's in place. So it's an ongoing thing that we need to address. And those things are a matter of life and death. Now, there's no greater value to me than a life. Now, we can talk all this other stuff we want to, but life is what it is. The other issue is the water line. The main water line is from Phoenix, from White Ditch to Phoenix. Asbestos. That's cast iron. I mean, that's asbestos. That's cancerous. That's cancerous. You know what cancer does, people? That's cancerous. And we need to take care of that. We also have that section in Braithwaite area that we had another break last week. That line broke again. So every time that line breaks, the line becomes contaminated for a period of time. And it's ongoing. Those are immediate things that need to be done. That's all I have for District 1. Thank you.
I have a question for Councilman Bartholomew.
Go ahead.
When you mention the courthouse, the people's place, the phase of the foundation is finished, you said?
Bottom floor is finished. Yeah, the slab is finished on the bottom.
Slab. Have there been an inspection on that slab?
Yes. They cannot move to the next level until that is.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I want to make sure this thing is done, man, but done correctly. I don't want to happen like we have the Miss Williams building down in Boothville.
Oh, I don't.
Just the people place. I want it to be
Done right.
where it should be done, you know.
I'm there every day.
And I
I'm there every
congratulate
day.
you for
The
it.
engineer there every day. Also, we periodically, when things are being pulled, our engineers, our safety inspectors are out there.
Okay,
all right.
You know, I really appreciate
And there's a lot of stuff. The other thing, just like the building is, I'm concerned about the electrical design. Here we elevating a building 20 feet up in the air, and we got the utilities in the ground. That's just like, to me, if you're trying to do stuff, eliminate the water process. But that's my opinion. But they do that, and we do have an engineer on site just about every day down there to monitor the construction that's going on with that courthouse.
Good.
Every day.
Good.
Every day.
Good.
Mr. Bartholomew, the parade on Sunday, you have a time and where it's going to run from?
The time, it all depends how much money you're going to bring. Determine how long, when we'll start. The more money you get, the quicker we'll start. So we're going to, I'm just kidding. It's going to start in the Point LaHatch area on the lower end.
And go up?
And it starts by 10, 11 o'clock.
Okay.
But come for 8, and I'll invite you to the little restaurant and go get you some breakfast. And it'll cost you about $10-15 an hour.
Okay. I just wanted to get a time and all.
Yeah, but they're going to, you go down towards Caledonia Trailer Park. You go south off the Point LaHatch Ferry. And they'll be lining up down that way, coming north. Then they'll go from there to the community center.
Okay.
Now, you know we got 70% of rain coming.
No, I know. I just, in case anybody had any questions, I just
So
wanted to know what time.
I'm hoping, kind of praying a little bit that it holds off and start the parade and finish it. But if not, I don't think it's going to really happen.
Okay. Next item, please.
District 2 update, Councilmember Black.
He's deferring that item.
And I want to hear about too, man. All the money we spending too, man.
We don't have any parades. We don't have a swimming pool.
Oh, we do have a parade. We got Paul's parade from the bank. coming down.
District 3.
No, coming down to Woodland.
Okay, point of order. Next item.
7E, discussion of the privatization of emergency medical services for Plaquemines Parish. Councilmember Black.
Yeah, we had a meeting with the administration and some council members in reference to the letters to the two private emergency medical services providers. Did you guys, what's the status of that? Did you guys send those letters out? Nicole, Ms. Williams, he's trying to.
Sorry. Yes, sir.
Yes, we did reach out to one private emergency medical service. I also had a conversation after our conversation with Dr. Jambaluka, who also had some good ideas.
Okay.
So
the council voted and passed a resolution directing you to write letters to two emergency medical service providers. We had a subsequent conversation, and you said, yes, I will write the letters to these two, which were West Jeff and Acadian. So I guess my question is, so you didn't write the letters?
As I stated, did reach out to one. The other two will probably use a similar draft. West Jeff, I'm still awaiting one, but we'll use a similar draft.
So you wrote letters or you just called them?
I don't recall the exact form of transmittal, but I know the communication was received.
By only one of them?
Correct.
But this has been the holdup with this for months. I mean, I'm asking a very simple question. The council voted directing you to get proposals from two separate companies, Acadian and West Jeff, months ago. My simple question is, does anybody in the administration, any of those guys sitting back on that front row, or maybe the director of administration, know how that particular company was contacted? Was it via phone, a text message, at a restaurant, at the barbecue place where we settle cases, or was it by an official letter? I don't know. That's a simple question, Mr. President. If you signed a letter that was requested by the council, then you'll know you signed the letter. We need to get this parish in order with emergency medical services. You said before, these are people's lives we're talking about.
There's a lot of things that we're trying to get in order, Councilman Black. But yes, we are reaching out. We have had communications with two. We're working on it.
One.
We're working on it.
Which one did you have communication with?
As I stated a while ago, one was West Jeff, and another one was AMED.
Okay. Did you reach out to Acadian?
That letter's in draft form. We'll
Okay,
get to it.
I just want clarification for the public's knowledge. What do you mean by communication? Was it a letter?
Can we get a
I'll look for it.
Can we get a copy of if it was a letter?
When I get some of my manpower back, I'd be more than glad to do more things. But we're doing as best we can.
Well, if you wouldn't go on field trips all day.
This is EMS we're talking about, which is people's lives and a critical needs for this parish. And I'm not saying personnel is not, but this is something that the council requested several months ago.
Chairwoman Williams, long ago,
We're talking about EMS.
long ago, yes, we're talking about EMS. We're talking about revenue, because that's what this is all about. Show me the money. Where's the money going? And it's clear where this council voted to pass a tax to go towards a port millage and not for an EMS millage. So, we're doing the best we can, and no need to argue about it.
Go ahead, Mr. Roussel.
As a point of clarification, Mr. Cormier, this council that's sitting here today did not pass a tax. We did not pass a tax. I don't hang all the baggage on your neck from the past administration. Please don't hang the baggage on us.
Thank you.
I'm referring to renewal, correct? The renewal of the ad valorem.
Can I
EMS.
respond to that?
Yes, Mr. Black.
This council reduced every year since we were in office
EMS, please.
the millage. As far as EMS goes, we're not asking to pass a tax. We're not asking to pass a millage. We're asking you to explore the option of privatization to save the taxpayers money, to provide us with an even better service than we have now for less than what we're spending on our own service. Can you please comply with the resolution that was passed by the council, draft a letter, one letter you can write it in Word, and it allows you to change who you're writing it to pretty easily. You can print it, and you can sign it and send it. If you do it like that, it'll be much appreciated. Thank you.
I'm quite familiar with Word. Thank you. We're working on it.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I'm done.
Anyone else have any questions about EMS? Comments? No? Next item, please.
Update on advanced electronic water meter reading. Councilmember Roussel.
Yes, I know at the last meeting we discussed that a proposal was being prepared by engineering, and I see the engineering department is here, and I was curious to know how we progressed and if we're going out for proposals anytime soon.
Yes, sir, Mr. Russo. We did contact a company that did the same RFP package in another municipality, and we have a proposal for them to prepare ours. It was relatively cheap to do, so we recommended that we accept that proposal to get a RFP package for the quality automated meters that we're asking for.
And who you asking to accept the proposal?
We emailed it up to the administration just to let them purview it. And
so we're waiting on the administration to approve the proposal?
I don't recall which day I sent it, Mr. Russo, but it was sent recently to them.
So once they approve it, it goes out and the contractor will prepare a proposal?
I think it's around $3,500 that the package, the RFP package, could be prepared. It's just changing the geographics to our parish.
So let me ask you this. I know you're an engineer. You don't think you had the qualifications to change that language?
Well, I wasn't familiar with the meters that were being presented. It was more technical than I anticipated.
So do we anticipate that the administration, which you are part of, is going to accept that proposal and enter into that agreement and go out for proposals, or is it going to be a money issue?
I recommended the money come out of my budget, my department budget, to cover the $3,500.
So there should be no holdup, and we should be seeing some progress on this by next 2 weeks?
We'll try to get an answer for you at the next council meeting.
Okay, defer this item to the next meeting, please. Yes, Mr. Black.
I mean, I'm not sure why we have to wait to the next meeting to get an answer on whether or not the proposals can go out. The Director of Administration is sitting right there. Director Giles is sitting right there. The President's sitting right there. The Chief Engineer has submitted it, agrees with it. You got a bunch of lawyers in here. The simple question is, can we answer Mr. Russo's question instead of waiting 2 weeks?
We'll review the paperwork and conduct the proper investigation and get back with you. Can't do it right now.
Well, that brings another question to my mind. If you're going to investigate it, your engineering department recommended it. Are you going to investigate the engineering department's recommendation? And who are you going to use to investigate the recommendation of the engineering department?
I'm not going to comment on paperwork that I don't have before me right now. We will be getting on it.
This is not about paperwork. This is about process.
Are you saying an RFP does not contain paperwork?
No, you twisted my words, Mr. Lawyer. What I said was
please, the personal digs, Mr. Councilman Russo. Don't go any. Don't get us anywhere. Now, I just simply stated that RFP is a lot of paperwork. It's got to be reviewed. That's all. I mean, and you're making some personal attack on me.
Well, if you consider it a personal attack, good for you. But let me tell you this. Your engineering department, who you employ, has recommended it to you. The question is, who are you going to get to investigate his recommendation? That's the question, irregardless of whatever you think and whatever you think that I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to a proposal on the market to be able to see what it'll take to get electronic meters. That's my end goal. Now, if you don't accept his recommendation, whose recommendation would you accept? Especially if we paid someone $3,500 to prepare the proposal and reviewed by the engineering department and now presented to the administration. And I wasn't going to push this issue, but Mr. Black raised it. And with the response I'm getting, obviously, I don't see any progress moving forward.
As you stated earlier, Councilman Russo, sooner this meeting gets resolved, gets over, we can get back to doing work.
So you can't answer the question today?
I have no reason to say that I won't accept the recommendation. I'm just not going to comment on something that I have not seen.
Okay, I don't care if you've seen the proposal or not. This is basic fact. You either working with the people who prepared the $3,500 proposal and your engineering department. The question is, who are you going to get to review that? Are you going to sit there and review it yourself, personally?
Councilman Russo, you said there wasn't a courtroom, but yet you're trying to cross-examine me now? Come on. We'll get to it in due time. It's on every council meeting agenda anyway, so that's fine.
And the reason it's on a council agenda every week is because you don't do it. If we saw results, it wouldn't be there.
You just heard about the results from chief engineer, so.
And that was a favorable result.
It will be handled in due course.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, just a real quick question. Is it your wishes to utilize this system? Are you against going with the digital automated meter reading system?
Councilman Black, you're trying to depose me now? This
No.
isn't a courtroom, as was said. Let's move on. Let's move
I'm
on.
not sure what that term even means. I'm not a lawyer. So what I'm asking is a simple question of, do you support the transition to this automated system, or do you not support it? So, because if you don't support it, then we'll stop
I
bringing
have
it
not
up.
reviewed the RFP. So please give me time, and we'll report back next council meeting.
Am I done?
I know you're not, but are we going to defer this item to the next meeting?
Yes, we're going to defer this item until it gets done.
It's on every council meeting, man.
It's going to get there until it gets done. Somebody's going to come along and do it one day.
7G, PowerPoint presentation by Randy Duke, Internal Auditor, on the ferries audit observations. Councilmember Roussel.
Thank you, Mr. Duke, for a breath of fresh air. We are here to propose today Mr. Duke and the Internal Audit Committee's observations on the ferry audit. And we met this morning, and we have received this presentation earlier. We're going to share it with this council. And as a result of our meeting this morning, we decided that we're going to take a step forward and do some operational review as well. So
That's correct. I'm hoping
proceed.
this.
And you can make it brief.
Yes, I'm hoping this examination will not be that controversial. We'll have to wait and see on that. Let's see. What I'm going to do is review the ferries audit with you all today. And as I go along with this, please feel free to interject and ask me any questions that you may have. And I'll try to do my best to answer them. If I can't answer them, I'll get you the information down the road. The first slide represents the start of our work. We tried to answer 4 questions. Are cash deposits accurate? Have they been deposited into the bank in a timely manner? Are there sufficient internal controls in place over cash? Does the ferry department operate in an efficient and effective manner? And does fraud, waste, and abuse and internal control weaknesses or errors exist? The next slide is my audit observations. The next slide is the ferry department's organizational chart. The next slide is observation number 1, ferries profit or loss. As you can see, in 2016 and 17, the ferries department lost about $4 million in 16 and about $3.5 million in 2017. The ferry manager states that he's not sure why the collections are down. It could be because of the MV Pride not being in service most of the year and crossing less vehicles because people are taking a different route and because of the traffic. As Mr. Roussel said during our meeting, that what we're considering doing here with the ferries department down the road and adding to the schedule of audits for the year is an organizational audit or possibly a performance audit to see if we can reduce the expenditures and reduce the loss for the ferries department. If there are any questions, please feel free to interject. The observation number 2, time clocks. The ferries department and the internal audit department are in agreement that the ferries department does not need a time clock. There are compensating internal controls in place at the ferries department. If they don't show up for work, the vessel does not leave the dock until they have a full crew. If a member calls the ferry manager, a member will call the ferry manager to let him know if someone doesn't show up for work or is late for work, and they will adjust their timesheets accordingly. So we are in agreement with the no need for time clocks. Observation number 3, the consideration of credit cards. It's always been my practice to try to do away with cash as much as possible. Cash lends itself to misappropriation. Best practices discourages the use of cash whenever possible. What I would suggest, or I did suggest to the Ferries Department, is that they look into the cost-benefit analysis of converting from a cash collection system to a credit card system. I think that would work better, and that would reduce the risk of any misappropriation. I'm not saying that there is any misappropriations, but I do think that we could reduce the risk by having a credit card system in place. The ferry manager states that to his knowledge there's never been any misappropriations during his time. The credit card system has the possibility of not working and could slow down ferry traffic. Also, because of the weather, the deckhands work in this, work with the credit card machine could be a bad idea. I still think that the credit cards would be a good idea if the cost benefit was there and if we could do that. The next slide is safeguarding assets. It came to our attention during this audit that the captain confirms the cash collected and then places the money into an unlocked desk drawer in the pilot house. We discussed this with the ferry manager, and we're both in agreement that the desk drawer needs to be locked during this time. He does state that he's not the only one that can have the keys. Several people are going to have the keys, but we're all in agreement that this, to safeguard the money, that this desk drawer needs to be locked up. Observation number 5, independent reconciliations. During my review, I thought it would be a good idea to have an independent employee do the calculations again that the deckhand and the captain have done, do a comparison or reconciliation, and note any differences and investigate those differences. The ferry manager says that he will spot check this. I believe the internal audit department can do some of these reconciliations as well. Customer receipts. In most cases, customer receipts are not provided to the customer. This would be a really good way for me to go in, pull all these numbered receipts, do a recalculation, make sure there's no receipts missing, and give the council as well as the audit committee additional verification that there's been no misappropriation of funds. Performance of surprise counts. This would be something that the ferry manager stated that he would be willing to do on a spot check basis. The internal audit department also will do this on a spot check basis. Segregation of duties. It was noted the captain prepares the cash deposit as well as the deposit ticket. Authorization, custody of assets, as well as preparation of documents should be segregated. Internal Audit Department recommends that someone other than the captain prepares a deposit ticket. He's not sure what other employee, the manager states he's not sure what other employee would do this because he has a low staff. The conclusion was during this review, it was noted that the Ferries Department does have good overall internal controls in place. It is my opinion that if these observations 1 through 8 were added, it would increase the controls over cash and reduce the risk of any misappropriation of funds in the future. The Internal Audit Department does look forward to consulting with the Ferries Department in the future and on any internal control issues that they may have. If we go back to the first slide, these audit objectives were answered by the Internal Audit Department. Or is the cash deposited accurately and in a timely manner? I believe that is the case. Are there sufficient controls in place? I believe that if you add the Internal Audit Department's observations 1 through 8, as well as, with the current controls that the department has in place, I do think they would have sufficient controls. Does the ferry department operate in an efficient and effective manner? I do believe that is the case. Our work, I believe, proved that. Does fraud, waste, and abuse and internal control weaknesses and errors exist? We found nothing to suggest that there was any misappropriation of funds and that any of these situations have occurred during the audit period. Okay, that's it. And if you have any questions, be happy to ask them. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
You have a question? No. Oh, you were queued in. I'm sorry. Mr. Black, you? Oh, that was just from last time? Okay. Anyone have a question, a comment? Mr. Roussel?
Yeah, I want to thank the Audit Department for preparing this document and for the cooperation that we received from the Ferry Department in preparing this audit. And I'm sure that you had quite a bit of cooperation according to the responses. So thank you, and we'll look forward to moving forward with any improvement operational work that you do.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your help.
Dr. Peoples?
I'd just like to say that I have read a preliminary draft of Mr. Duke's report, and I appreciate his comments. I've made some inquiries. I need to get a number of people together to come up with the best ideas. Some of Mr. Duke's recommendations may not be practical. For example, the recommendation about credit cards. It takes a long time to load the ferries now, and it would take even longer if we were processing credit cards. Personally, I think our controls over cash for the ferry are very weak, and I think we need to put a lot of effort into that, both in terms of making sure that we need to collect from everybody who should be paying, and I'm not sure that we're doing that, and also just to make sure that there is some sort of reconciliation, and we need to determine who would be the best person to do that reconciliation as to what we're collecting compared to what we should be collecting. And I personally like the idea of having some sort of toll tag or sticker, probably a sticker that would be a particular color that would go on every vehicle that is authorized to travel on that ferry free. And then you could determine how many cars were not authorized to do that, and you could make sure we're collecting for those cars. It becomes a little bit complicated in that some vehicles have more axles, and we collect more for some than others. It's not a real simple thing to get perfect procedures in place. I don't think we'll ever be perfect, but certainly I think we need to be collecting more money than we are collecting, and I'm going to look real hard to see what controls we can put in to make the process better.
Well, thank you for agreeing with the audit report as far as some type of control needed on the cash. We abandoned those red stickers because of the abuse in the system. And I don't think that a permanent red sticker or blue sticker or anything like that lends itself to increasing the collections or the accountability, because they swap out cars, they sell cars, and on and on. We got out of that system for that specific reason. And I would not recommend that we go back into a permanent sticker on a vehicle, because it became a political situation to where you got red stickers depending on who you know. And I don't want to see us return to that. So, you were here, you could have done it then, you saw what happened. Now I look forward to you being here again to try to work towards a cash management system.
Well, there are pluses and minuses to every approach. If you don't have stickers or some other form of identification, then it's just up to whoever's collecting to determine if a person should be exempt, if they're 65 or older, or if it's a parish vehicle or whatever. We need to have some way of counting the vehicles that should be paying in some way that could be verified. So we're going to be looking at that and trying to come up with some recommendations.
Good, I look forward to that.
Mr. Juneau?
Yes, I also think that the deckhands that collect the money should be trained and told what to do, and they also should have a box that's locked, just like they do in Algiers. If you got a $20 bill, I'm sorry, it's $20. Because what they do, what people are seeing, they got their money in their hand, they fold it, and they put it in their pocket. This is a lot of complaints that we have gotten, but it just has to happen. The deckhands, well, they taught the proper way procedure. They said they don't have to give receipts, which people ask for receipts. One lady asked for a receipt, they gave her 10 of them at the same time. You know, so these boys have to, or girls have to be trained of exactly what to do.
I know somebody that asked for a receipt and was given a whole book of receipts.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So we all know that there's problems there. We look forward to you working with recommendations with the Internal Audit Department to try to resolve some of them.
And I will work with the Internal Audit Department on that as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Juneau, just to elaborate on your comment, it's all go back to leadership. I mean, if they would have been instructed to, a box would have been put in place when the tolls was implemented, you know, they would follow order, you know, so you don't put the cart before the horse. It should have been studied and before we implemented it.
I think we recommended that or requested it during those talks whenever we voted on that legislation.
But it didn't happen, is
You're
what
right.
I'm saying,
Yes,
so it
ma'am.
still falls back to the leadership.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions or comments on this item? Next.
Number 8, approval of minutes from the January 25th, 2018 meeting.
I offered to approve the minutes, seconded by Mr. Juneau. Questions, comments? Hearing none, machine is open. Approved 8-0. Mr. Badalami's away from the table. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Offered by Mr. Burt, seconded by Mr. Edgecombe. Hearing none, machine is open. What time is it? 4:15. One vote pending, Mr. Juneau. Motion to adjourn is approved, 8 votes. Meeting is adjourned at 4:15 p.m. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I didn't think it was going to.